to success in the trucking industry.
This is Trucking Business and Beyond, the show that puts the money where it belongs.
Back in your pocket.
Good morning, you beautiful bunch of fuckers, and welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Tuesday, May 28th. It is time for the Power Hour. We are here live. Phone lines are open. Jump in and line them up right now. If you're watching the live stream, you can dial the phone. That number would be 855-950-3835. If you're watching on the app, you can hit the call now button. We'll get to those calls here in a little bit. We're going to hear from the team from Pittsburgh Power first. Speaking of the app, we have some exciting updates on the app. All right, if you are an Apple user, you got to wait a little bit. We submitted the app. I say we, Aaron and the team submitted the app. Apple held it up for a little bit. We had to explain a couple things. We should hear from them in a couple days. Android is approved, so I highly recommend you go download the new app. Once we switch over, you will not be able to listen to the show without the new app. And that's what we're waiting for on the broadcast platform. We want to get the new app out, make sure everybody's ready, and then when we pull the trigger, you will only be able to hear the show on the new app. The new app, exciting, is also includes the new version of fuel gauges. They are combined into the same app now. The fuel gauges is in beta. So we are looking for beta testers. So if you are on Android right now and you download the new app, you'll have the audio road and you'll have the option in the app to choose to become a beta tester or not. And then once we work out the bugs through the beta testing, we'll release that as a finished app as well on both Android and iPhone. We're just we have a little bit of a delay on the iPhone. So we're excited about that, and we'll probably work on finishing up our final testing this week on the broadcast app and get that out. Then the next issue I will work on is trying to integrate our live stream, our current live stream, into the app. Eventually, our app will do the live streaming of video as well. But in the meantime, I've got to get the audio connected. When we have a guest, we haven't been able to have the guest on the video stream and have them being able to talk to the callers. So that's the next issue, but things are progressing. We're excited about it. We're going to get to the show today. Do I have any other announcements? I don't think so. We've got Bruce and Pete. Eric and Leroy with us this morning. So I'm just going to bring everybody in at once, and we can just start talking over each other this morning. Good morning, guys.
Good morning, Kevin.
Eric, Leroy.
Good morning, Kevin.
We're here as well.
Everybody's here. All right, so I gotta tell you guys, you're gonna have to lift me up a little bit and cover for me today. I'm in rough shape. I spent the last 4 days. You guys will be excited about this, though. I spent the last 4 days, hours and hours and hours every day on a 750cc V-twin.
Nice.
Yeah. Bruce, what do you think?
A motorcycle?
No, it was attached.
Motorcycle?
No, it was attached to a wood chipper.
Oh,
Are you clearing paths on that property?
Man, I cleared so much land. I cleared all the way down to the creek, so you can see the creek from the house now, and you can walk down along the creek bank. And yeah, it was rough though. I'm hurting today. 4 days of that.
Yeah. Well, at least I posted some pictures, and the place looks pretty nice.
It's getting there. It's getting there. It's a lot of work.
It looks like a very looks like a very homey, welcoming place to be.
It is. It is. And we spent the weekend out there, and the weather was absolutely perfect. We had all kinds of great food. We worked on it a lot, and it was a good weekend. But I'm feeling it now.
Okay.
That's a big wood chipper, by the
All
way.
right. Yeah, I'll say. Well, life's a dance. You learn as you go. Sometimes you lead, sometimes you follow. And you were leading there. Maybe you should have followed and hired somebody to do it.
Yeah. I thought I was going to buy a wood chipper, but maybe not. I still have a
Okay.
lot to clear. I mean, if you look at the whole property and everything I want to clear, I'll bet I only got a tenth of it done. So there's a lot still left to do.
You may have a problem with the environmentalists in that state, and you may not be allowed to clear that.
You'd be surprised, Bruce. I'm a little shocked about this because I know Washington, you're right, the rules out here get a little goofy, and we're in a national wildlife refuge. What is it? National forest. We're in a national forest. So I thought the rules were just going to be crazy stringent on what you can do. I can do almost anything I want on that property. It's zoned for almost anything, and nobody seems to bother you out there. People out there kind of do what they want to do.
My understanding in Breckenridge, Colorado, if you cut down a tree, they will arrest you.
Yeah, that's not happening
On your
here.
own-
Not out in this
on your
part of
own
the state.
property.
Yeah. So
Okay. Well, tell Lisa to keep posting the pictures. I like looking at them.
we'll do. Not that I could stop her. That's what she does. She does a lot of
That's
pictures.
all right.
Yeah. All right. So, Bruce, what's on
All
your
right.
mind today?
Well, I said the life's a dance. You learn as you go. Sometimes you lead, sometimes you follow. That's some guy by the name of Montgomery. I forget, Jason Montgomery or something. That's his country western song. And I think back when I was young, my father was very mechanically and electrically inclined. But for some reason, we didn't take much advice from our parents. We all, everyone, hold on, I got to close the door here. It's sometimes you feel you just know more than your parents, right?
That's right.
Especially when you graduate from high school, you know everything, man. You got that degree or that diploma. But then, and this pertains to young owner-operators that have a father that's been successful in trucking. And when your dad tells you something, listen to what he's saying. It's okay to ask him why he felt that way or why he does stuff a certain way.
Hey, Bruce, let me
And if he
interrupt you
says,
right
well,
there, real quick, because you just said something I talk about all the time, and it is the follow-up question sometimes is more important than the original question. And I try to tell people all the time, when you're asking for advice or somebody's giving you advice, when they're done, always ask them why or why not. And the reason is
Okay.
so many people give advice when they don't really know that it's true. They just heard it somewhere else. And we repeat things over and over and over and over. But if you stop somebody and you say, why? And if they have to explain to you why something is true or why you should do something, then you'll know they really understand it. And they're not just repeating something they heard.
Exactly. So here's how the story goes. The wife asks her husband to stop by the butcher shop and get a ham for Christmas. And he comes home with a ham. And she says, "Oh, honey, you didn't get the ends cut off." He says, "Well, why do we want the ends cut off?" She said, "Well, I don't know. But my mother always had the ends cut off the ham."
Yeah.
And so he says, "Well, I'm going to call your mother." So he calls. He says, "Mother-in-law, why do you always get the ends cut off the ham?" She said, "Well, that's silly. That's so it fits in my roaster."
Exactly. Yeah, it's
Okay.
good to ask why.
So, So that's why you want to ask why. Well, why do you do it this way? Or why do you feel this way? And then let them explain to you. But if so, well, my dad used to do it this way, or this, that's just the way we do it. No, that's not just the way we do it. There has to be a good reason why.
So one of those,
Anyway.
there's another story like that. Why are the railroad tracks in the United States? It's 4 feet 8.5 inches between those tracks. Does anybody know why?
No.
I often wonder
I heard this.
why
I
they're
heard
so
this, but I
narrow.
forgot.
Why did we make trains so skinny? They would have been much more functional if we would have just made them a little wider. And there's no reason not to. So here's the story, and now people argue about whether the story's really true or not. But you trace things back to England and what England did, and then you trace why did they do it, and you go back, and it turns out that it's almost the same width as Roman chariot wheels. And nobody's bothered to change things since then. Because we just that's the way we always did it.
Wow.
Odd number, too.
Yeah, right. Why?
And
You're right. It's an odd size. It's really narrow.
There's another railroad track story. If you try to walk down the railroad track and see how far you can go before you step off, and usually it's not very far. But if you have your friend on the other track and you reach out and you're holding each other's arm, you can walk indefinitely.
Ah, listen to that. Teamwork. There's a lesson.
Teamwork.
Yeah.
It has to be teamwork. And we try to do that. Eric's going to talk about that later on here in a few minutes. But it's little things like that. It's little lessons. And as we get older, we sit back and we look at those little lessons and we say, yeah, why didn't I think of that when I was younger?
Yeah, exactly.
But that's a good thing about you, Kevin. You've brought a lot of things to light for a lot of people, and you've helped a lot of people in your radio career. And now you're doing it with the health, and I congratulate you on that. So.
Well, the more I do it, the more I just start to realize, honestly, you look around and question everything.
Yeah, and when people say, well, my doctor says this, if you look at doctors usually are not a healthy group of people.
No, they're not. And we know why now. That whole system is so broken. If you don't take responsibility for your own health, there's not a lot of help out there. Our medical system really is broken. Now, speaking of which, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I'm going to be talking about it a lot tomorrow on the health show. Speaking of keeping an open mind. Now, I've made the claim over the last almost 10 years now that when it comes to the reality of living healthy every day, I know far more than most doctors. And I know more about diabetes than most doctors because we focused on it so much. But we focused on how do you get rid of it, not how to manage it. Doctors do not ever try to get rid of diabetes. They will tell you you can't. And it's just not true. They will manage it, and that's their term. You will have diabetes the rest of your life. You'll be able to eat whatever you want, but, we're going to have to teach you how to cover it with insulin and medications. And it's a horrible system, and everybody's health deteriorates. Now, here's the crazy thing. After saying all this time, I know more about this than doctors. Turns out we might all be wrong about diabetes, completely wrong. And I'm going to talk about it tomorrow. I've got an open mind about this. I'm not convinced yet, but it comes from somebody I respect a lot and somebody who's been doing the health thing for a long time and has discovered a lot of stuff. He's now claiming it's not sugar that caused diabetes in the first place. It is a problem of sugar, but it's not sugar that caused it. And that's a crazy premise, but he makes some sense. So I'm going to be probably finalizing a lot of reading. I'm trying to find anybody else anywhere that supports this idea.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a truck-related thing to think about. Rusty, who's been on the show, and he was at your CMC at Louisville, and he was one of our first-timers at the Snowmobile Conference. And we were talking about Rory Geiger, his fairly new Freightliner, always leaned to the right. And in fact, to the point where he had to put shims under the seat to make the seat level. And Freightliner didn't really service him well, so he's leaving Freightliner. And his whole career has been with Freightliner.
Wow.
But Rusty feels that the right front spring on a semi-truck gets abused a whole lot more than the left. So the road's crowned. The right side of the road is usually rougher than the center. And the engine torques to the right. And Rusty's theory was replace the right front spring more often than you do the left front spring.
Well, the first thing we'd have to talk about is
P600,
how few people ever replace springs.
P600. Yeah. Because my Kenworth leaned to the right, and I put the Brock air ride front suspension on it, and it came with one leveling valve. So I bought another leveling valve, and I put it on that airbag, and I made the truck level that way. But if I would have known what Rusty said, I'd have replaced that spring.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Something to think about.
We learn as we go.
Yeah, we do.
We learn as we go, and we have to keep learning.
We have to keep an open mind about learning.
And you're going to learn a whole lot becoming a farmer or a ranchette maybe, or whatever you want to call it.
We're calling it a farm. I don't care what anybody else wants to call it. We're calling it a farm. It feels like one to me. It's big enough. And I've got a tractor. If I've got a tractor, it's got to be a farm.
Okay.
Now, I do have a show.
You're going to. Nope.
Go ahead.
Last couple of weeks, you forgot our closing was supposed to be one health tip a week for us.
Okay.
Because a lot of times we stay busy and we don't get to listen to your health show. So
got it.
At the closing, the last thing we want you to say is one health tip.
Okay. Remind me today because I have a big one. You got to remind me, though. I'll forget stuff like that, or I'll have to set an alarm or something. All right. I have one more complaint. So equipment today, and you get an owner's manual, whatever it is, you get a new piece of equipment. I wish they could separate all of the goofy warnings from the instructions or the owner's manual. Get them out of there. Give all the idiots, put it on orange neon paper or something. Give it all to the idiots that need to read 87 things you should not do with a string trimmer because they're dangerous. I mean, you got to get to the middle of the manual anymore just to get past all the warnings. Are people really that stupid?
Every piece of equipment wear safety goggles.
Yeah. Well, now let's talk about something worse. How much damage, seriously, how much trouble can you get in with a string trimmer? You're not going to cut somebody's leg off. How much damage could you really do if you were just totally stupid with a string trimmer? Not that much, right? It's not really that dangerous of a piece of equipment. You could hurt yourself, but come on. So now I just bought a steel string trimmer. It doesn't have two safeties, or one, it has two. You know how almost all the equipment now you have to push a button before you can pull the trigger? There's some sort of safety that makes you do something before you can pull the trigger. This one has two now. Why? So you're holding the handle and the trigger's on the bottom, and on the top, there's a button you have to push forward with your thumb, and then under your palm is another button. So while you're holding the button forward with your thumb, you got to kind of push down on the other button with your palm, then reach around and pull the trigger. And if you slip, you got to go through it all again every time you want to pull the trigger. Why? Why do we need 2 safeties on a string trimmer?
Well, I use the battery Works, WORKS or Z. They used to have a lot of advertisement to trim along the driveway and the walkways, and that's the same way. 2 safeties on it.
2? Why? Can somebody explain that to me? That's ridiculous. 1 is enough. We really don't need 1. My string trimmer no longer has any safeties. I MacGyvered mine. You pull the trigger and it works.
You took a brand new machine apart.
It's not even a
changed
week old. Yes, I took it all apart and took both of those safeties out, made it work without them.
All right, so now you know why we do some of the things we do at Pittsburgh Power to make an owner-operator happy with his truck.
Exactly.
Because this goes back, this is the same as what Leroy calls the babysitters. And to make the engine so it responds, we have to down-tune some of the babysitters.
So I stole that term. Lisa walked in and I had this brand new string trimmer all apart on the bench, and she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "It broke." And she said, "Isn't it under warranty?" And I said, "It might be, but I need to get it fixed today because I got a lot of trimming to do." And I said, "And while I'm in here, I'm taking out the babysitters." She didn't. I had to explain what that meant.
So,
yeah,
Leroy, your term babysitters has been used elsewhere.
that's right.
I see that. Yeah, it's just a catch-all term.
Yes, but I give you credit for it.
I don't think that's actually mine. I think that might have been Ethan's. I can't remember.
Was that Ethan?
It was either mine or Ethan's. I can't remember. It's been so long.
Ethan's gone. You should
Okay.
probably take credit for it now.
I don't take credit for things that aren't mine.
That's good. I don't either. That's good. All right, Bruce, what else you
right.
got?
That's all I have. Yeah, that's all I have.
All right, and I have heard that Eric has a lot today, so Leroy, why don't you go next?
All right. So I just wanted to touch on torque request. It's something that I got brought up last week, and I talk about it fairly frequently. And it's usually in the context of when someone's asking about a tune, and they ask me like, "Well, how do you do it? What do you do? Do you just go in there and just turn a dial, or how is it?" And in some ways, it is a pretty straightforward process, but it depends on the ECM. Some ECMs, like for instance Cummins, their torque modeling is extensive. I wouldn't say complex, but they are modeling how much request that the driver wants, what the indicated torque would be, what the frictional torque would be, what the machine torque, how much the structural limit. There are so many torque limits inside of a Cummins ECM. It's overwhelming when you first start.
Sounds like
but
it.
then when you look back on things like a DDEC 4, they had a table for the pedal, and it was at this percentage of pedal and this RPM, how much power do you want? Do you want 100% of the power, or do you want 80% of the power? And you can just tune it that way. It's pretty simple. DDs, funny enough, are kind of like that as well. They have only just a few torque maps, and everything else is kind of in models where it's not, I guess, well, this is kind of a side tangent. ECMs kind of either go with a lookup table, which just means the ECM has a question and it goes to a table, and just like a slide ruler, it goes, what do I need to set the value to? Or it can be like a model, like a DD15 has, and it's more of a computer science function-based thing where it takes inputs, makes a decision, and puts an output out. So it's not really a lookup table. It's making a calculation and spitting something back out. But when we do a tune, everything is very intentional, no matter what engine it's on. It's not that we're just turning a dial up and we don't know what it goes to. The only reason sometimes we say we don't know what it does is because drivetrain losses are different, or whether your engine is healthy or not. I mean, injectors on some of these old ones, it can be a spread. I can set something to 600 horsepower and it does 450, or it does 550. But generally on these new ones, when we set the torque maps, we can go right over the dyno and pretty much hit our mark almost every time. Sometimes there's a little bit of tweaking here and there, but the torque tables are set up with RPM and load. So if you say I want 2,000 foot-pounds of torque at 1,100 RPM, then we can set it right there, and we can build custom torque maps. I talked to Joel a little bit about this a while ago about when you change gears and you're starting to run a lower RPM. In order to have the same power to do the same amount of work in that gear, a tune would be beneficial because you could add more torque in those lower RPMs to make the gear change even more effective.
Got it.
So I just kind of want to touch on that few things. It's pretty much just typing some numbers in and setting the torque to what you want, where you want. I mean, we can make it look as goofy as you want, but we kind of do our thing and we know what works well and what doesn't. But it is not just the dial; it's intentional.
You're not throwing darts?
No darts.
Okay, got it.
We know exactly what the numbers will do.
All right. I like it. What else you got?
That's all I had for this week.
All right. So, Eric, you got a big week for us?
I do.
All right.
I would like to start off by complimenting you were talking about the warning labels. First off, I think all warning labels should be withheld at the factory and just let Mother Nature sort itself out, because the amount of the warning labels we have, to the extent of them that we have, is just absurd. Like what you went through, it's ridiculous. I bought a John Deere tractor when I bought my new house, 12, 13, 14, whatever it was, a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And it was a clip. I have some really serious steep banks to mow. I think the one I measured one time was like 22 degrees, which doesn't sound like a lot.
No, that's
until
pretty
you're
big.
on the side of it.
Yes. Yeah.
On the grass and you're sliding, you get that, the bite marks in the seat because you're really trying to hold on.
Exactly.
But that one with a bunch of pressure switches on the seat. Well, if I stay on the seat, I'm falling off the tractor.
Right.
I literally have to sit on the fender and mow these sideways. So that was the first thing I did too, was bypass the seat pressure switch. And my wife did the same thing. What you doing? Well, do you want me to cut the grass or not?
Exactly.
We really don't have a choice here.
Right.
And that was a $9,000 piece of equipment. I mean, this isn't something that somebody's going to go out and buy on a whim. You really shouldn't need those kind of warning labels, but that's the society we live in. But away from that, I want to go down that path for a minute. One thing I did want to talk about today was details. And we talked about teamwork a little bit earlier, and it takes, an entire team to make anything right. And that's what we try to pride ourselves in here. The details that we try to look for, like a Hawkeye report and just down to like MD alignment, we try to really put our effort into it. Where we had a husband and wife team, White's Transport, they brought us 2 brand new 2025 Peterbilts a month ago for alignments. The one truck had 2,500 miles. The second truck had 3,500 miles. You would never think about getting a wheel alignment on a brand new truck. Well, truck number 1 was off a 1/4 inch. Not bad. Truck number 2 was off 1.5 inches on the left rear drive. That's huge.
So
if you want to keep with the state to the crown of the road, you're never going to do that with a factory alignment. But it's just details that we try to put into all of our craftsmanship and work here.
Let me address. So far, if you've got a lot of comments, we're going to be here because every time you make a comment, I want to talk about it. So this is something we talk about a lot, and we've been talking about it for years with Mike Beckett. Do you know how much time they have to align the truck on the assembly line?
I'm going to guess less than 2 minutes.
No, I think it's like 7. I think they do get like 7 minutes. But Mike Beckett says two things. You always align a new truck after it breaks in. He said they're never going to be right. If they're right, it's just pure luck. They're almost always off. And he prefers to let the parts all kind of settle in a little bit. We don't get as much wear on stuff as we used to. Break-in periods aren't as extreme as they used to be. But he says give it some time. I think, if I remember, like 30,000 miles maybe. Kind of let it break in and settle in, and then go get it aligned. And he's been talking about that for years. And it's just they just don't give enough time on the assembly line to get them right. And we all know this phrase, and most of us that have ever turned a wrench hate it, but it's within factory specs.
Yep.
Their specs
I
are
hate
just
that.
really wide. They leave a lot of room for error in their specs. Now, so here's another story from over the weekend about details and how sloppy we are getting just across the board. So I was putting together a big Blackstone flat top grill. Now, it's not that complicated, and I'm sure I could figure it out without the instruction manual. But I've put together enough things to know that there are a couple things that can be pretty tricky, and if you mix up two parts that look really similar, or it'll go together until you get down to the last couple of pieces, and then something's not going to work right, and you got to go back and figure out what you did wrong. So I know at least glance through the instructions to find out if there's any weird things like that. So I'm reading the instructions on this grill. This makes me crazy. I bet I spent an hour trying to figure out if I was the stupid one or not. They tell you, they show you the diagram. Put this bolt and this bracket on the left side legs, and you're working on it upside down. So you got to think, okay, when it comes up, this is the left side. So I work all through that, right? So I put those two wheels on the left side legs, the casters. Then you go to the right side, and you put those two wheels on. Done. That was easy. Now all of a sudden you have to attach another part. But now on this step, they're calling the right side of the grill what they called the left side of the grill in the last step. It's just wrong. It says here, put it on the right side, but in the diagram, it's pointing to the left, and it is the left you're supposed to put it on. The instructions are just wrong, completely wrong. There's no way around it. How does that happen? How do they print these things and send them out over and over and over with a glaring mistake like that? Now, 6 steps later in the instructions, now when you're putting something on, now you are looking at the side of the grill from the side, and now they're talking about that as though it's left and right when that should be front and back. But they say left and right. So they give you 2 brackets, 4, 2 are left, 2 are right. But you got to stand on the side and look at them, and you got to put the left one on what really is the back side of the grill and the right one on the right side of the grill, and then you go over to the other side and you do the opposite. Who came up with this manual where they refer to left and right 3 different ways on the same grill?
I think it's the same guy that used to make the Far Side cartoons. I think he's having a good laugh.
It's almost like a joke. Are you kidding me? You can't figure it. You make this beautiful grill. I love the grill. Who wrote the damn instruction manual?
Kevin?
Yes.
Kevin, it's really, I'm enjoying this show because things that have frustrated me for many, many years are frustrating you.
I know.
And Eric. I mean, the switch on the seat, that's a pain in the ass.
I have the exact same issue on this John Deere tractor. I wish I could get under it and look at the pulleys while it's running, but I'd have to go get somebody else to, or I have to put something on the seat, or, how stupid that my mower won't run if I get off the seat.
The pressure switch should be on the bottom of the seat. If you just flip the seat up, there's 2 wires. Just plug those 2 together.
Yep.
Mine was actually just you had to unplug it.
Oh, really?
I think it's a wire.
Yeah, mine was, because I initially did the jumper thing.
Yeah.
But no, mine was just unplugged.
So look at mine. It's
I
been 12 years.
unplugged in and it worked fine.
I can't remember. Well, now you say that, mine might be unplugged too now.
Yeah.
I thought I had to make a jumper, but maybe not. But it's real easy to do.
But this is, so even though we're not talking truck specific right now, but this is just stuff that goes on in life.
Yeah.
And if the 4 of us feel this, everybody else is feeling it too.
That's right.
Yep.
Yep.
So.
All right, go ahead, Eric. Yeah.
All right.
What else
So
we got?
the details, I was going to say, when you go somewhere and spend your hard-earned money, you want good attention paid to your details. And another example I can give is my new engine I'm building. I took some parts up to my machinist last week, and I said, "Here, I need you to balance this." He called me up and he said, "Hey, there's something wrong. This is not balancing out right." And we got talking a little bit, and he called me back about an hour later, and he says, "I figured out why." Because TCI, which is a pretty big transmission company, they forgot to drill one of the holes in my flex plate. I mean, this is a major, renowned company for transmissions in the car automotive industry. How do you forget to drill a hole?
I know.
It was going to throw my engine off by 45 grams. Now, 45 grams is only a tenth of a pound. It doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're talking about a 4-inch stroke and like a 32-inch crankshaft, you're going to feel that in the car.
Yeah.
It's kind of crucial, and that's where when we balance the pistons and the rods, and we do the new dampeners and the balancing rings, we take the extra time to make sure that it's right, because you're in that truck for 10 hours a day, sometimes even more. You want to be comfortable. You don't want to have something that's going to vibrate the fillings out of your teeth, or
Right.
this thing again. Every time you get into a pole, it's detail, and that's why you come to a shop like ours. We're definitely not on the beaten path. We are out in the middle of the country. It's peaceful out here. We enjoy it.
Yes.
But you do get a good quality workmanship from us too. One thing I wanted to stress on that. And on the work side of it, we have a pretty busy shop right now. We have a 95 Kenworth T600 in here. We're doing an in-frame on with cam followers, balancing the rods, resetting the cam timing so it runs better, and an MD alignment so he can enjoy it. This is a 95 truck, and I've seen more and more of these older trucks come through our shop lately that are just beautiful. These guys are taking a lot of pride in these older trucks because they don't want anything newer, and I get it. Yeah, this guy's going to retire in probably not too much longer, but he just wants to go out in a nice truck, and it is. It's a beautiful truck. Got an 01 Freightliner in here with a 12.7 Detroit. We were having some high lead, copper, tin, and aluminum on the oil samples. So we were going to look, we did a couple of samples just to make sure that the readings were correct, and unfortunately they were. We pulled the rod and main bearings down, and there is some wear on them, so we're doing some rod and main bearing wear on that truck. It's got 600,000 miles, so it's not the end of the world. I mean, definitely got some life out of it. I have a 2000 International in here. We're doing a rear main and rear structure reseal, along with an overhead and tune. These are all big jobs, and I got one guy on vacation this week for holiday week, so it's all hands on deck. We have an 02 Freightliner in here. We're doing, it's kind of a weird problem. We're going to replicate it on the dyno. I think Leroy already had it on the dyno this morning. Under cruise control, it'll jump up in boost pressure. And it's really odd why it would only do it on cruise. Did we find anything out on that one, Leroy? Do you know?
I think it's a vehicle speed sensor dropping out.
Okay, that makes sense. But you'd never think to check that in your driveway.
Right.
Little things like that. That's where the dyno really comes in. You're not the average bear, okay?
Yeah.
We've got a 17 Peterbilt in here. Good friend of mine, Willie Howman. They own a paving company, an asphalt company. It is really odd that the fan will not work unless you shut the engine off. That's when the clutch will actually engage. But going down the road, it won't kick on. You turn the air conditioner, it won't kick on. You flip the manual switch on, it won't kick on. But the minute you shut the truck off, you can hear the clutch lock up. Really odd thing. Maybe
Yeah,
something
it
to
is.
ECM. That's another job for Leroy. I'm piling them up on him today.
So,
And we have a...
I want to comment on that
Go
one.
ahead.
That seems like such a simple thing. The fan won't come on. We have been through so many issues and reasons why. It's one of those things that seems really simple, except every time somebody calls, it's something different. Like, how many things affect whether that fan comes on or not?
Tons.
That's what it seems like.
6 or 7.
Yeah, it seems like it's way more complicated than what you would think.
We get a lot of calls like that. Hey, I heard you guys talking about this on the radio. My truck's doing similar. What do you think it could be?
Right.
Unfortunately, you can't diagnose it like that. What I actually want to do is start recording customer phone calls when they make the engine noise. Those are great. Hey, my truck's making this noise. It sounds like this. Rah, rah. Yeah, you'll get all kind of weird noises coming out of the phone.
When I
very interesting.
Yeah, when I get that on the air, I always tell them, "Hey, just hold your phone out the window and let me see if I can hear it." That never works, though.
Oh, I always ask them to repeat it. Like, no, that didn't help.
Try a different octave.
Yeah. Hey,
we
have somebody try before we move on. We have somebody trying to help us here. They're claiming on John Deere mowers, if you set the parking brake, you can get off of it and it will stay running. I wasn't sure it had a parking brake, but now I do remember there is a brake there somewhere you can set. I'm sure the manual tells you that maybe it'll run if you set the parking brake, but I couldn't get through the 632 warnings for stupid people to figure that out.
Well, it doesn't help me when I'm on the side of a
That's
hill
true too,
mow, though,
right? It's not going to help there, right?
We got a 2020 Peterbilt come in here that we are doing pretty much everything we offer on this one. The dampener, the mercury filled balancer, we're going to do a DPF cleaning, a diesel force, the Hawkeye report, an ECM tune, intake and exhaust manifolds, a fast fuel system, and setting the overhead. And before you say it, he already has a fleet air filter. That
Yeah, that's the works there.
We have Then we have an 06 International in here with some oil leaks and lift pump. And that's what we got going on. We're probably about 3 weeks out.
Wow.
For any kind of service appointments, but we're staying busy. And of course, like this being a short week because of the holiday, and then we have one guy on vacation the rest of the week, and this guy's going on vacation starting tomorrow. So it'll be a little bit short staffed here, but we'll make it.
Got it. Speaking of vacations, I'm going to warn people because I always get all kinds of hate mail. I do like to take vacations just like everybody else does. And then I've had people say, well, if you're going to take 2 weeks off, why don't you pre-record 2 weeks? Do you know how much work that is? That would be so much work, then I would need a month's vacation. So sometime soon, I haven't set any dates yet, but sometime before we get too deep into summer, I'm probably going to take a week off. I'm contemplating 2, but for sure I'll be taking 1 week off. So I'm just warning everybody ahead of time. It's going to happen. Get over it. And I'm not recording a week's worth of content. It's just too much. So we'll go back and listen to old stuff. There's lots of old stuff you could go listen to on the app. All right. Anybody have anything else? Do we have calls? I haven't even looked at the board yet. Yeah, we got lots of calls. Uh-oh. Looks like we must have lost Bruce. I think we're getting him back in right now. Let me check. Bruce, did we lose you?
You didn't lose me.
Oh.
No, I had to leave water filter people. So they call on this line. So
got it.
Another issue, they were just out and fixing the water system. Now they have to come back. So it only lasted a week.
Ah, okay. Got it. All right. If nobody hasn't...
Everybody knows all about that.
Go ahead.
Anybody that's in the mechanical field knows how things like that can happen, right? You fix one thing and a week later something else breaks.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's really...
Even though the two parts aren't related.
Right, right. What's worse is sometimes it happens while it's in the shop being repaired. And it comes out and something else is wrong. And of course, you kind of want to blame the shop. Well, I brought it to you and it wasn't doing that. But, you know, sometimes those things just happen.
Hey, I have a question. Maybe Eric and Leroy, is there a bellows in an X15 that would be fuel related?
Fuel related? No.
Because Roy Geiger just sold a guy a gallon of catalyst, and before he finished the first gallon, he lost his bellows on an X15, and the mechanic at the shop said, "Oh, it was that max mileage catalyst." But I'm saying, what bellows would that be, and why would the catalyst do that?
Exactly.
You know how mechanics are in other places; they just want to blame everybody on everything else.
There's a bellows on the exhaust manifold where it bolts up to the EGR valve, and those are, I don't want to say notorious, but we always change them anytime.
Oh, that's the steel part. Yeah, it's amazing how 1 ounce of catalyst, 25 gallons, can ruin a steel part, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's cast.
that's
It's
a little.
cast iron. I mean, yeah.
I think I
that's
would
a
find a
stretch.
new mechanic.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
I think so. All right, let's get to some phone calls. Let's help some people. Let's go to Kentucky. Justin, good morning.
Morning. How y'all doing?
Good. What can we help you with today?
All right, so I got a couple questions. One being, I had a DOT inspection done the other day at TA, and I'm very skeptical of what these people say about anything. They came back on the inspection that my rotors they're developing a lip on them, and that they need to be replaced. But the guy was saying that it'd be better just to replace like the whole hub assembly along with the rotor, and he was saying that they're like $1,800 a piece and all this jazz, and that just seemed like an awful lot of unnecessary parts for that, and I was just wanting y'all's opinion on that.
What kind of truck is it?
It's a Peterbilt 579. It's a 2020.
And how many miles are on the rotors?
I am not sure. I'm the second owner of this truck, so I couldn't tell you that.
How are the brake pads?
They were good.
Okay. All rotors. I've had disc brakes since I was 19 years old. All rotors get that lip on the outer edge, and that does absolutely no damage whatsoever.
Okay, but
Do you ever have
saying
them?
that they were getting like kind of wore out, but I mean, I'm not real sure exactly what.
Reach in
how
there
they
with your
classify
finger.
worn out.
Reach in there with your finger and see. Take a guess at how many thousands deep it is. Are you driving right now?
No, I'm taking my dog out to use the restroom right now.
All right. Yeah, just scrape it with your fingernail and say, it feels like 10 thousandths, 15 or 20. Eric, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, a couple things. One, when I was right out of high school, I worked at an auto parts store where we used to cut rotors, surface them and make them true again. And that lip on the outer edge, we were only allowed to cut 3 thousandths per cut. 9 times a day, I would get rid of that lip on the first cut. So, I mean, it's very, very minor. And like Bruce said, it makes no difference on the pad because it's not in the wear marks where the pads are actually riding either. Now, there is a throwaway measurement. I'm not sure where you would find it. I would just probably try to use Google or something on the lines of that, or call your local Peterbilt dealer. In the automotive industry, you get a book from the state inspection in Pennsylvania, and it tells you what minimum and maximum thickness are to rotors and what the throwaway is. So you actually take a pair of micrometers and you measure it. Now, you have to have the ones with the points on them. So you can't use like a regular flat slide because it'll get caught up on that lip on the outer edge. But you can measure those and see what the distance is. But as far as replacing everything, no. I mean, if your pads are good, obviously somebody's changed the pads before if there's a groove cut in the rotors. So I would say replace the rotor. I don't see any need to replace like the axle or the spindle or anything like that. That sounds a little bit too much.
That's what it was sounding like to me, because he was like, when he was going through everything, I'm in my mind like doing the math, and I'm like, well, damn, by the time you get done doing that job, it's gonna be like $8,000. That's ridiculous. And of course, they would say it ain't their money,
Now they are expensive. Paul Carmine is a car hauler, and he'll be calling in probably shortly because he just had this same exact job done. But he had over, I think it was 1 million miles on Paul's. But the rotors and the calipers and the pads on these trucks, they're not cheap. They are kind of an expensive piece. But if you're getting that many miles out of them, it's well worth it.
So don't you
Right.
think the caliber's rebuildable, Eric? I mean, I used to
The
rebuild
caliper,
calibers on the Corvette.
I don't know on these newer trucks so much. I know, again, I'm going to relate back to my automotive background. It's not cost effective, just like the turbochargers. It's getting less and less cost effective to rebuild them than it is just to buy a remanned one. And I think the same principle applies here with the calipers, but you may be able to rebuild them. I would have to do more research on it. I don't typically see a whole lot of the disc brake setup coming through our shop just yet. There's a decent amount, but it's not overflowing like we still see the conventional drum.
Okay.
So let me add something to this. The guy that put me in the diesel engine business had a 68 Corvette, 390 horse, 427. And I heard him over telling somebody, this is in 1977, that the local Chevy dealer wanted $500 to fix his leaky disc brakes. That's a lot of money in 1977. I said, Chuck, the rebuild kits are $4 a piece. It takes me a half hour caliber. So for $16 in parts and 2 hours labor, I can rebuild all 4 of your calibers. And he said, you're kidding me. Well, he loved to cook. He was Italian, so he cooked me a surf and turf dinner. Needless to say, I didn't charge him any labor, but he did pay the $16 for the parts, and we fixed the brakes. And that's how I got into this diesel engine business, was because I knew how to fix calibers. So if your calibers are leaking, then you need to rebuild them. If they don't leak, you don't need to rebuild them. And you should call me and let me know about how deep that lip is. Even
Okay.
if you took a feeler gauge, like a 3 or 5 or 10 thousandths feeler gauge, took it out of the holder and laid it in there, and rub your finger across and see if it's level with the outer part of the lip. I'd like to know. And
Okay.
do you know if your brakes are made by Haldex?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Um,
You should take
I mean,
the
I guess
VIN
I could
number.
call the Peterbilt place and give them the VIN number and see what's on there.
Yes, that's going to say
Whoever.
whose disc brakes they are, and then you call the manufacturer and say, how many thousandths am I allowed wear on my rotors before I have to replace them? And are you okay with them being cut? And if he says,
Okay.
no, we don't. All right.
And I guess another question with some of that is we've had a lot of maintenance cost on this truck already since we got going in March. And I'm wondering, is there like a better place to go to, like through Napa or something like that, so you're not always having to buy the parts through the dealer that, to break it off in your rear end price?
Well, Napa does have a division that handles truck parts, so that's a good theory right there. I would try that.
Because, for example, I went to the Peterbilt place coming through Phoenix because my AC wasn't working right. And I replaced all the, air filters in the cabin, under the hood, behind the dash, and all that. And then, for like 4 filters, it was like $250, give or take. And there ain't nothing special about them, So.
Did that include the labor?
I did it myself. I changed them myself,
Okay.
but that was just for the filters itself.
Well, it's the same way if you have a Dodge with a Cummins engine, don't go to the Dodge dealer to buy filters, fuel filters and oil
Right.
filters. Because
Okay.
on my 2016, I went to the Dodge dealer and he set the 2 filters up. He said $275. I said, what? He said $275. I said, I've been a mechanic since 1965, and I didn't fall out of the cherry tree yesterday. And so I
Right.
called Sean, our parts manager. I said, you better send me some filters. So,
Check with your local
well-
mom and pop parts store too. I mean, I used to work at a lot of auto parts stores before I came here. A lot of your local mom and pop stores have an industrial or heavy duty division. They can get you a lot of these parts: filters, brake chambers, brake drums, probably now even into the disc brake stuff too. But It's not going to be like O'Reilly's or Advance or AutoZone, anything like that. But get your local family-owned parts store on the phone and talk to them. They'll probably be able to help you out with some of this stuff too.
Okay.
Where do you live?
All right.
Where do you live?
I live in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a lot of truck stuff there. I had a thought. Okay, it'll come back to me. Oh, brake drum and equipment in Pittsburgh. Are they still in business? Eric, do you recall?
I don't think they are, but I'm not 100% sure on that, Bruce. I think they actually did go out.
Did they go out or were they bought out?
Probably bought out.
I'm going to Google them and see if they're still available. They were really good with brakes and exhausts. And when I'd be making exhaust systems, I'd go down there and grab every 5 or 6 inch short radius, long radius, 45 degrees, and I'd bring them home and start my welding and fabricating and then take back what I didn't use. They were wonderful people to deal with. And look and see if you have somebody like that in Winston-Salem.
Okay. All right. And one more question before I hop off here. I'm gonna do an oil sample, my first one, when I get home this time, since I wasn't able to, get my sample kits out here on the road. How would I call in and have my oil analysis gone over with me?
When you call,
You would just call into Pittsburgh Power.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant on
Call
the air.
Pittsburgh Power. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Either Kevin or I. Either one of us.
You can call Pittsburgh Power anytime they're open and talk to them about it. You can call here on the air, and we have access to it as well. So you could just tell the call screener.
So you can just pull it up.
If it's a Polaris sample, then we have access and we can just pull it up.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome. I appreciate
So
it
it
very
looks
much,
like-
gentlemen.
You're welcome.
Hey, hold on. It looks like
Oh.
brake drum and equipment's still in business. Let me see if I can get a phone number for you.
In Pittsburgh?
In Pittsburgh.
Okay.
You don't go through here, they could UPS it to you, but it says up to 80% off on retail.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
Okay.
they're good people.
Okay.
They're from Pittsburgh.
There you go.
All right.
I'm trying to find it. All right, it's giving me other people. So call me after the radio show. Tell Kathy to put you through to me.
Kathy
Okay.
at Pittsburgh Power office?
Right.
Okay. All right. You got it. I appreciate it, Bruce.
All right, perfect. Thanks for the
You're
call.
welcome.
Let's go to Phoenix. Oh, let me try that again. There we go. Joe, welcome.
Hey, Kevin. Yeah,
What's on your mind
thanks.
today?
Long time listeners. I haven't called since probably 2015. All right, so I have a 2011 Peterbilt 387 with the ISX 15, and I bought it in 2015 from my boss's wife after he passed away. He had a mission reassignment surgery done on it, and not long after that, it spun out a main bearing, put a crate engine in it, and it's been running great until recently. Just this year, I put about $40,000 into it because I had let it sit right when all the expensive prices were happening with the used truck market. And I
Yeah.
went to work for a buddy for like 8 months while we were waiting for parts. And I didn't know that the prices were going to drop so fast, but the shop had already ordered all the parts. So I went ahead and did all the repairs.
Got it.
And everything's up and running. But it's got 390 gears in the rear and 18 speed. And I put the OPS on recently and the fleet air filter, and I'm kind of a DIY type person with electronics, so I 3D printed my own version of air tabs that I designed and used the computer program to do the wind tunnel analysis. I did get a little bit of a gain,
Wow.
probably not as much
Okay.
as the official ones, but I like doing stuff
Interesting.
myself if I
Yeah.
can.
No, that's pretty cool.
So I've been getting my route is Green Bay to Phoenix with a stop in Albuquerque, and then from there back to either Milwaukee or Appleton, and then that's my 2-week schedule. So I take off like 5 days every other week,
Okay.
and it's been working good. But I got to drive about 68, 70 to make sure that I meet all my deadlines with LTL reefer stuff.
Let me guess.
And
Let me
I'm
guess.
wondering if it's worth.
I would say that in that operation, these specs, that speed, somewhere between 6 and 6.5 miles to the gallon.
On good weeks. This week, because I had 30-mile headwinds almost the entire trip coming down with all that storm activity, it was in the mid-5s.
Got it.
And,
and I could see that with just some. So here's the thing, and I know you told the call screener your question is, should I fix this truck or get a new one? I don't need any more information. What you need for this truck, hey, Eric?
Yes, sir.
You and I should come up with an official bad truck disposal program. We've talked about leave the keys in it, leave it running in a bad neighborhood. We need to come up with an official truck disposal program, and this would be our first candidate. I would get rid of this thing in a heartbeat.
Yeah, man. Yeah, because it runs great. I've never had a thing. It's just it was all body stuff, no engine repairs. It was all like, where the saddle sits on the frame and you got the U-bolts hanging down and all, connecting everything.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a rectangle peg and a rectangle slot. Well, all mine were on all 3 axles were all oval, and that's.
Yeah,
I just couldn't find the parts for those. That was the majority of the expense.
This truck has all the red flags. It was owned by somebody who deleted it originally, and we had to put a new engine in it. That's just a problem. The specs are awful. Come on, 390s.
I worked from him from the day that he bought the.
Yeah,
so I was the only driver in this truck that just had lots of issues.
Well, that's what I mean. We have a history here, and nothing is good. All the red flags are here, and it's really bad specs anyway. I mean, 390s and an 18-speed.
Yeah,
for this,
my operation.
It's ridiculous. Horrible for this operation. Makes no sense. The fuel mileage is horrendous. We know that it's a problem truck. I would get rid of this thing as quick as I possibly could.
I keep trying to talk my wife into it, and she's worried about a truck payment. And I tried showing her the numbers because I track everything on fuel gauges, and I showed her what other people because I was looking at like a 22 Volvo, something like that.
Well, here's what I can tell you, that if I had to guess, I'm not even looking at your business report or anything, but I can pretty well say your cost per mile on just fuel and maintenance alone have to be over $1.
This year it wasn't like the last couple years. It was pretty good until all this suspension and other stuff creeped in. I barely had to do anything for like 8 years.
Yeah. How many miles are on this truck?
On the engine, about 620,000 and 1.4 million on the frame, on the body.
1.4. This kind of maintenance cost isn't going down. You might get a break here and there, but
I didn't think so. That's what I was trying to explain to her.
Yeah, if it were good specs, we might put up with it. If it wasn't a problem truck, but it was the wrong specs.
I was wondering if it's possible to change the rear end if it's worth the money. I'm guessing you're going to say no to that.
I don't think so. Now, if it's one of those, maybe. If you can do all the work yourself or most of the work yourself, or you go find used parts, you might make some sense. But why go through all that trouble and all that work on a truck that there's just so many reasons not to own this thing?
Right.
That's what it comes down to. It's the
just sucks
overall.
because
You
all
could
the money I've just put into it.
well, but I remember this phrase goes back a long, long way. Don't throw good money after bad. I've heard that phrase my whole life, and this is true.
That's what I was thinking.
At some point, you got to look at it and go, yeah, I wish I wouldn't have spent all that money on this truck, but I did. And do I want to continue losing money on every mile? And what I mean by that is you are operating at over $1 a mile on fuel and maintenance. And in your operation, that number could be 60 cents. Think about that.
Yeah.
You're losing 40 cents a mile,
You're
mile after mile after mile.
And because it's a Peterbilt and 18-speed, I'll probably at least get somewhat of a decent trade.
You might.
Because I have
Yeah.
all the maintenance reports going back to day one.
You might let somebody else deal with this thing. You could do so much better. And now is the time because there's plenty of trucks for sale and they're cheap.
That's exactly why I was calling. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't overlooking some reason to try to make this work.
Not that I see.
Before you let me go, let me tell you a real quick thing about safety and overprotective stuff. I bought a 6-inch wading pool for my 4-year-old daughter. It came with a little necklace with a neon tag on it that says that the authorized adult needs to be wearing this the entire time and watching the child the entire time they're in the pool, and you must hand it off to another authorized adult if you're not going to be in the vicinity to keep your eyes on them the entire time.
It
came with it, and I just thought this is the epitome of stupidity.
Unbelievable. Look, we were complaining about these warning labels a decade or two ago. This isn't new. But what shocks me is it continues to get worse. For a while, it was one page in the front of the manual or instruction sheet. Now it's half of the book is just warnings. I mean, you could go through the warnings and create a whole comedy routine out of these things. They're so ridiculous. This is one of them.
Fox really did that. or was that the other guy?
Yeah.
One of them Southern
I think you're right. Yeah. Yeah. It's just, it's gotten to the point where it's just ridiculous now. I think
All right, well, I'm going to sign up for your coaching thing so that I can get you to help me figure out what type of specs and whatnot I need to get for my operation.
Perfect. Look forward to talking. You could do that today. We'll talk on Thursday. This is the week for business on the coaching calls, so that'll work. Let's go to
Okay.
Virginia. Okay, go ahead, Bruce.
Justin, if you're still on, just hold on one second. Justin, if you're still on brake drum and equipment, their phone number is 412-781-4233. 412-781-4233. I'd give them a call about those disc brakes. Okay.
All right, Bruce, I don't mind you doing it, but every time we give out a phone number over the air, and we do it all the time, I always remember something, and this happened so long ago, but it still sticks in my mind. This is way back when they first brought out the allowance. The extra, was it 400 pounds if you had an APU? You got an extra 400 pounds, I think. And when they first brought that out, and everybody's talking about APUs, and a couple states came up with some programs. I think it was Minnesota had a really good grant that you got a lot of money off on a APU if you bought one at the time. So to help people out, we put out the phone number. Here's the phone number for, how you can get your grant to get this APU. And you didn't get a free APU, but it was a pretty good deal. I just don't remember what it was. The next day we got a call and somebody was so irate. It was a T-shirt shop in Virginia, and we actually gave out their phone number. And because it was for something, free or a grant, they got a lot of phone calls and they were not happy. Then they figured out how it happened. It was on our show. So we apologize. Of course, I felt bad. But I always think about that when we give out a phone number. But if it's not for something free, it wouldn't matter. It's not like 15 people are going to go call that place right now. So That always
At
sticks
least
in
you
my
can get
mind.
some honest opinion and not
Yeah,
worry about it, what a DOT inspector says.
that's right. There you go. All right, we're going to Ray in Virginia. Ray, welcome.
Hey, how you guys doing? I want to comment to Pittsburgh Power on my tune. Thumbs up. I love it. Recently had it retuned. If any of your listeners out there are on the fence about getting the tune, jump your ass off that fence and go to Pittsburgh Power.
There you
will
go.
enjoy your truck so much more. And I had just a couple quick comments on some of the other topics you guys were on today. You know, the warning labels. I read this really, really cool article, and the reason why it's getting so much more and more and more, Kevin, is because when they make a product and they give it to the legal department, they research anybody else that's made that and any lawsuits that's ever been done to it. So the sad part is, all those warning labels, some idiot did that and probably tried to sue for it.
No, I'm sure they did.
Keeps growing.
I'm sure, but here's what I think I'm going to do. Because at some point, and we're already way beyond that point, I think I'm going to, or somebody should, if you get injured now with any of these things, you should file a lawsuit that there were so many warnings you couldn't get through them all and you got confused, and that's how you got hurt.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah,
funny.
I think somebody should do that.
I also, you were talking about the track width of the railroads, and I read this incredible in-depth story about that, which does go back to the Romans, but it's not like people weren't smart. There wasn't, there were intuitive people back then. They knew they could haul more weight by widening the axles of tires.
Yeah.
And they could make things ride better. The problem was there was already hundreds and hundreds of miles of these damn Roman roads. So when they tried to make something different, the ruts of the old roads destroyed the new things they built.
No, I have read. Now, here's the other crazy thing. I've read those stories. This story about this has been around for a long time. Now, if you go look it up, they say it may not be true, though. But, even if it isn't, really? Okay. So what? There's a good point there. The point is, somewhere along the lines, we stuck with this width when it didn't make sense, especially in the United States when there were no railroad tracks before, there were no chariots before. We get to start from scratch. Why did we just copy what they did before? Why didn't we think it through and build something that made more sense?
Exactly.
Well, hold on a second. There was a narrower gauge, and isn't that that railroad that takes you up down in Colorado, takes you from in the southwest corner, takes you up to Silverton? Isn't that one of those narrow gauges?
It might be.
Narrower?
Yeah, it might be. I think there are a few around still. But we should have, and there was probably a good reason why they went narrower when they needed to, but there should also be good reasons why we could have gone wider in a lot of places and improved things.
Right. Well, the narrow gauge was because it was less excavation when they were traversing up a hill. They didn't have to dig out as much mountain.
I agree with that.
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah. That saved a lot of work. But hey, funny story on you're talking about Bruce was talking about asking your dad questions and always asking why. You'll love this. When I was a little bitty kid, when I got probably 7 or 8 years old, my dad actually started explaining stuff to me, which was wonderful. I learned so much from my dad because my dad was born in 1918. I'm a very rare product. My mother was 12 years younger, so that's how that worked out. But when I was a little bitty kid, when I got old enough to understand him explaining, I said, Dad, when I was littler, why did you always, when I would say why, he would say, to make little boys ask questions. I said, why do you always tell me that? He said, because you'd ask me why 200 times a day and you wouldn't understand. You were too young to understand what I was going to say. So I have to wait till you got old enough to explain stuff to you. I thought that was the funniest thing.
Yeah.
I physically remember going, you used to tell me to make little boys ask questions, and he explained why he did that.
There you go.
Well, anyway, you guys are out there that are looking for a tune. You got to go do it. Trust me, it's like driving a different truck.
That is correct.
Thank
It
you.
can take you some.
Thanks, Bruce.
You're welcome.
It can make you love the truck.
That's right. Let's go to Iowa. Matt, good morning.
Hey, good morning. So I can go back a little bit further with John Deere safety switches.
Okay.
In 1980, my dad bought a brand new riding lawnmower, and I didn't weigh enough to, I was only 4 years old. I didn't weigh enough to trigger that sensor.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, he just set a bag of lime on the seat, and that worked. And then he had to just create a jumper wire.
There you go.
When my son was finally probably about 4 years old and started cutting grass, the lawnmower I had, the safety switch, you couldn't just bypass it. So I ended up pulling the switch out of the seat and zip tying it together.
Oh, yeah.
So that he could use it.
Right.
And I probably am going to have to figure that out again this year because now I have a zero-turn mower.
Ah.
And that you have to have the brake on, and there's a sequence. You have to move the handlebars in, and they slide out to the side to get on and off. If you pull the handlebars forward in front of you while the brake is on, it kills the engine. If you get off the seat with the brake off, it kills the engine.
So, okay, now
my grandson just turned 4.
Okay.
So I'm going to have to figure it out for him this year.
That's right. Now you just reminded me of something else weird on this little riding lawnmower that I don't understand. First, like, I got this thing, I just inherited it with the farm. So it's not like, I went through the manual. I just jumped on it. And it takes a while to figure out how to get it started the first time. Like you said, there's these sequences you have to go through. So I get that figured out, and I'm out mowing. The first time I go to put it in reverse while I'm mowing, the engine stalls. I'm like, well, what's with that? And so I keep trying it. Every time you try to put it in reverse while the mower deck is going, it stalls. Except there was one little button on the dash that I never figured out what it was for. So I'm trying to look at the little symbols they put down there, and I see it's got an arrow pointing backwards, and I'm like, well, I wonder what this button does. So I push the button, and now I can go in reverse with the mower. Why do I have to push a button to be able to go backwards with the mower on? Why doesn't it just go backwards?
Yeah, the reverse with the mower blades on. And yeah, the other message you got about putting the parking brake on.
Yeah.
I'm pretty positive that's only to keep the engine running. The blades will still shut off.
Oh, well, not mine.
There's a way you can keep the blades going.
Since I can't find all the parts for my mower deck, my blades don't shut off. They kind of slow down a little bit, but the belt is still engaged. Now, when you first start it, they won't spin. But if you drive around every now and then, it'll catch enough tension and the blades will start spinning. But I can't find the right parts to get the brakes working right on the pulleys. So mine just keeps spinning anyway.
And Matt?
Yep.
Are you on a hillside?
Yes, I just our ditch. Road ditch is the only hillside we really mow.
All right, well, I have a hillside, and I have a Gravely zero turn. It came with the house. And so there's no brakes. And when you start down the hill, and the wheels are sliding, there's no place for your feet to push on a brake. So you pull the levers back, makes the tires spin backwards, and now it goes faster down the hill. And now you're out of control. And it's like, how do you steer this damn thing? Because there's trees. Sometimes it just scares the bejesus out of you coming down a hill, especially if the grass is a little damp. I still think they should put a brake pedal on these things. You have no steering wheel and you have no brake.
Yeah, I'm guessing especially with wet grass and probably the tires you have on there, a brake wouldn't do you any good because it's just going to slide still.
Yeah. I'm not even going to say wet grass. I'm going to say it rained the day before and the grass is dry. The ground may have a little moisture to it, but and I don't use this thing all the time. I have a guy that comes and cuts. Well, you can tell when I did because there's a lot of slide marks.
Hey, Bruce, I'm sure if you look in that manual somewhere, they warn you about this.
Oh, so I was away for I was away for 6 months, and I jumped on this Gravely last Wednesday to cut the grass, and I had to stop and think. All right, now how do I get this thing running? Okay, there's a choke and there's the key. And then now what do I have to do? I had to pull the handles in, and I have to be careful because it's parked right beside my car. And there's a little thinking going on to run that zero turn when you haven't been on it for 6 or 7 months.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there is.
The one thing I did have to change on mine, because we've got softer ground, and I bought it used, so I don't have 900 hours on it, I think. And the tires, it's a commercial grade mower, so the tires had some wear, the turf tires. I went and bought barred tires, so regular tractor tread, because I got mine stuck within the first hour of owning it. It's a zero turn. It just not the same as a four-wheeled machine.
That's right.
Those are good until you're on, and then those bars actually slide sideways. You got to watch that too.
Yep.
Like I actually put ATV tires, like off of a four-wheel drive quad, so I have traction laterally in, up and every which way. One thing, Bruce, though, that does help me, because I'll get that a lot, where a couple times I have to trim around trees or something, I'm pointing straight downhill, and if it's wet, it'll start that power slide, and then my wheels actually lock up and they start turning reverse, where you go forward even faster. The best thing you can do is nail the throttle, push it straight forward, and then the tractor will actually slow itself down because you're sliding faster than it can actually drive. But if you nail it forward and then slowly let out of the throttle, you can control it that way.
That's counterintuitive.
Yeah. But that's like telling a guy he's coming down out of the Eisenhower Tunnel, heading west on 70, and his brakes are smoking. That's like telling him to
give
hit
it full throttle. That's right. Yeah.
You're already sliding. You're thinking, what am I going to hit? But hey, now, Kevin, just think. You started this day by with all the safety stuff,
right?
And everyone has this same problem. We all share these same problems.
Well, and here's a good point. This is kind of what we have, all these warnings about really stupid stuff. I mean, some of those warnings are so ridiculous. Like I said, they become comedy routines. They're so ridiculous. And yet we kind of have a true safety issue on this that everybody is saying, that this is a real problem. You could hurt yourself because of this. And can't they come up with a solution for that instead of all the stupid stuff?
Yeah, like put a brake on it. So, a lot of this started 25 years ago. A guy went out and bought his first motorhome. It's a true story. And on the way home, he put it on cruise control. And he went back into the kitchen to make a pot of coffee. And he crashed. Because nobody was at the steering wheel. And nowhere in the owner's manual did it say that you can leave the steering wheel. And he won. The guy won. This is back around when that lady won after she burned her tush with the hot McDonald's coffee.
Hey, Bruce.
It was around the same time.
I remember hearing this story on Paul Harvey.
Oh, okay.
Paul Harvey told that story way back when it happened. Yeah.
That even goes back. Man, that goes back further than 25 years.
Yeah, it's been a while because I remember hearing that on Paul Harvey.
I read it or heard it on frivolous lawsuits.
Yeah, plenty of those. All right, Matt, what else you got?
So My scariest story of driving a piece of equipment and sliding was in a bulldozer. And
Sliding
in the middle
bulldozers.
of winter, so it was it was ash. Yeah, on frozen ground. Bulldozer tracks are like ice skates, and you
Oh,
get on a
boy.
hill and start sliding. You got no options, but hold on.
Oh, that's it.
It was not fun.
No, that would not be fun. That would not be fun. That's a heavy piece of equipment.
How long was the
you could build
slide?
some momentum.
Yeah.
Yeah, and luckily, I mean, it was like say an ash landfill from a power plant, and it was the driveway, which was all packed and hard, from plowing snow for trucks to get in and out. So luckily, it just leveled off onto smooth ground, and I didn't hit a ditch or something and roll over. But
Yeah.
once you start sliding, you got no options.
That's right. All right.
On the bulldozer, can you not push one forward and one reverse and get it going either forward or backwards instead of sliding sideways?
Not when there's no traction.
Once it was going sideways, even
Yeah.
putting the blade on the ground didn't do any good.
Okay.
So, Kevin, you were talking about vacations earlier,
Yes.
and I don't even know how many years it's been since we've been on vacation, but 2 weeks from today, we'll be on our way to the Black Hills.
Ah, exciting. That's fun.
Going on vacation, so.
Yeah. And
You're not going to wait till Sturgis?
No, it's we got other reasons we're going out there, but just to get away to my first week of starting every other week running, and gotta
there you go.
Relax.
Are you
first time in years?
Are you stopping at Wall Drug?
It sounds like Angie wants to. I could care less, but
Come on, you gotta
no, you
gotta stop at Wall Drug.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're only going to truck every other week? Matt, why are you going down to every other week?
So my route changed. It's going to take me about 8 days to make a round. So it's just going to be an every other week round now.
Yeah.
Hey,
that's okay.
Hey,
but
Bruce.
I've got more miles, more drops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bruce, he's going to be semi-retired.
Yeah, like me.
Yeah.
Well, so I've run the miles because I'll be going to Fargo now too. And if I end up taking a short haul from Fargo back to the cities, I'm still going to be at 105,000 miles a year.
That's still a good year. In fact, doing it every other week it sounds like a pretty tough year, actually. Right. Yeah. Yeah. When you're working, you're going to be working hard.
So you're going to work. You're going to work 8 and take 6 and 7 off, right?
Yep. Yeah, 8 on.
Good.
That's an awesome schedule.
Yeah,
really.
I like that.
Yeah, and still get 100,000 miles in. Yeah, that's nice.
So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. At first, I was nervous, but the longer I've thought about it, the more I like it.
Yeah, I think so. Good.
How old are you?
What was that?
How old are you, Matt?
47. I'll be 48 yet this year.
Good for you. I think you're going to enjoy it.
There you go.
I plan on it.
Angie may have a honey-do list. It could be 2 feet long. So.
Oh, we're in the middle of building a house right now too, Bruce.
Plenty to do.
Full chaos.
Yeah, plenty to do.
So I don't need to call Angie and tell her about the honey-do list because it's our. I already got the message. He has no idea. That's right. She listens.
That's
she
right.
Listens to this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I tell you, that text came quick.
Yeah.
You do have to realize a house is not a man's castle; it's a woman's palace. You know, we're happy with a garage with living quarters, but not a woman. You spend 35 years on the road, and you think you're going to retire and do what you want to do? No, it doesn't work.
Well, it's in the planning of the house. Yeah, it's, you know, for me, it's what we need in the garage, and for Angie, it was all the kitchen needs this though.
That's right.
So, but yeah, that's the way it goes.
All right.
One time, I like to quit by 9 o'clock at night. That's my quitting time, 9 o'clock. And came in, took a shower, and hit my reclining chair. And my ex-wife said, with her hands on her hips, she walks over because she was ironing. She says, "Is that all you're going to do for the rest of the day? Is sit in your reclining chair?"
For the rest of the day, it's 9 o'clock.
I said, "Honey, I start my day at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
It's 9:30 at night. What else do you want me to do?"
There's 2.5 more hours before the day is officially over, though, Bruce.
Yeah.
That's right. All right, Matt, what else you got?
All righty. We'll let you move along.
All right. Thanks for the call. Let's go to South Carolina. Shane, welcome.
Hey, first of all, Kevin, I really appreciate what you do, and I appreciate the man you are with your own opinions, and you're not persuaded very easy. So I like that.
Well, thank you.
But I have a 07 Coronado. Well, we appreciate you too. Lots of us do. But I got a 07 Coronado. It's a 14-liter. It was actually deleted when I got it in 19. It wasn't done right. But anyways, I had it done right. I have a Bully Dog exhaust and a 1702 turbo. But what my real question is, and I like facts. I worked at the Freightliner factory.
Hold on. What engine is this?
A 14-liter Detroit.
Whoever put the turbo on didn't do you any favors.
Well, I can tell you. Go ahead.
That turbo's too small for a 14-liter engine.
Oh, well, this is. I run a hopper, okay, and so I'm right at 80,000 most of the time, and I make sure this is something people need to know too. If your speedometer is not right, your miles per gallon is not going to be right. You know,
correct.
I don't think a lot of people realize how many speedometers are actually off. You know,
well,
but at the end of the day, my average. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and we've been doing the fuel mileage thing long enough. If you want to be really accurate, and almost nobody does, just the fact that you wear your tires down will make your fuel mileage inaccurate if you don't adjust for it.
Now, what do you do that? By programming the revs per mile?
I
know a lot about electronic stuff on trucks because that's what I did at the factory. Most of the 15 years, and then I started my own business, truckwires.com, and went all over the place fixing electrical problems for people. And I had a trucks since 13, but now I got tired of doing electrical stuff. It's just got too damn complicated, and as I've got older, I don't like aggravation, so I started driving one of my trucks.
Yeah, I'd actually have to ask Leroy this question. Leroy, is there some place in the ECM that you actually set the revolutions per mile of the tire?
Yes, I know for a fact it is.
Okay, and that's where you would do it.
That's where you get your speed from.
Right. So,
but how would you adjust?
Well, you have to go
such a small amount.
Right, and that's why I say most people don't bother. But if we're really trying to be accurate, that is a factor.
Right.
What you would do is you have to go measure the tire with the wear now, because think about it. New drive tires, some of them come with a full inch of tread, 30 to 30 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
You wear off a half an inch, and you've changed the RPM of that tire.
Right.
So you go measure the tire, and then you calculate out the RPM then, and you would alter it in the ECM to become more accurate. When they do fuel mileage testing, the best tests are not done by gallons. They don't measure the fuel by gallons. They measure it by pounds because fuel expands and contracts. So that's not completely accurate when you go by gallons.
Right. Well, it's close enough for me. Just
exactly.
Being honest.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, This truck right here, about the lowest I ever get, and that might be coming down Interstate 81 with all the hills running 75 mile an hour. I'll get 6.68. And like where I was pretty light, Going up to North Carolina from Georgia, I got 7.2.
Okay.
But it's got 355. It's got 355s with the 13 speed. It's the double over 13. I don't know the numbers like y'all know. But my question is where should the highest the parameter ever be? Because I see 1200 sometimes.
Where's the thermocouple in the manifold or the behind the turbo?
No, it's behind the turbo. It's behind the turbo.
Oh, buddy, whoever did your work, they really led you astray. Because 1200 degrees is 1500 on the hot side, and you're in a danger zone. If you call us, we'll get you the right turbo. You'll get a quarter to a half mile to the gallon. You'll probably drop at least 200 degrees exhaust temp.
Okay. Now, this ECM, I don't know how old it is, and I mean, I know the longevity of ECM. Would I be better to send you a new ECM?
No, I'm not talking about ECM. I'm talking about the turbo.
Oh, you're just talking about. Okay.
I'm talking about the turbocharger. They put a 12.7 liter turbo on a 14 liter engine, and it doesn't work. But that's because everybody out there thinks now they're experts at all this stuff, and they've never sat down to study turbochargers.
Trust me, I know what you're saying. That's why I want to find everybody's got opinions. I like facts. If I can get a fact from a manufacturer, that's what I want. But so much stuff is really hard to find, you know. But that's why I wanted to call y'all, because I appreciate people giving me true information, not what they think. Because what they think can end up, like you said, you know, creating more problems.
That's for sure.
So I've learned that I've learned that by knowing how much I know about the electrical side of stuff, you know. But my other thing, you're talking about alignment, my first 6 months at the Freightliner factory, I did alignment. And I'll tell you, this is why, and actually I've become a trainer for Freightliner Corporation my last, 6 years. But they will get a new alignment machine. At first we had B-line, then we went to Hunter, then we went back to B-line. And you have issues of people laying out of work. They don't have enough people to train. I mean, we did in our prime, I guess, days around 05, we were building 250 trucks a day in a 24-hour period. That's putting frame rails together, building cabs, everything. Oh, yeah.
That's a lot of trucks.
The Freightliner plant was the biggest. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You ain't kidding. But at the end of the day, you got a lot of problem with people laying out of work and just putting people in there that don't know what they're doing. Yeah. And a lot of people just don't care, and that's a true issue.
It is a true, and it's kind of the same stuff I was talking about with, putting out a manual that is just wrong, just absolutely wrong. It's not even opinion. Oh. This is left. It can't be left on this step and right on the next step. I mean, but it just, and I see it everywhere. Total. And it's not even an incompetence. It's just people don't care enough to do things right.
But see, that's the issue with people, and that's one thing I like. Like I say, I've owned trucks for quite a while, and I know a lot of good shops because I fixed electrical problems for most of them for a long time.
Yeah. Around
the Charlotte area. But so many mechanics think that they have to have a damn answer when in reality, they have no idea. But if you don't know what you don't know, so that's the people, most guys with a truck that don't know much about their truck. They're going to have to trust what they say. And mechanics they have no problem knowing it all. I hate to say it that way, but I'm sure y'all know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. To me, it's okay to say, I don't know, but I'll do some research on this, or I know who to call.
Right.
That's right.
Several months ago.
That's why I called y'all.
That's right.
Okay. Well, you should have called us years ago on that turbo.
Well, hey, Bruce, hold on.
But I told you the story about the Holley carburetor, didn't I? You remember that story?
I've heard it or not.
Okay, Dominic Santucci, DA speed specialist. He was my god of gasoline engines. He built my race car engines and helped me set the track record at Nelson's Ledges Road Course. And I ran a Rochester fuel unit on this 66 Corvette. But on one of the other cars, I bought a 650 double pumper Holly, and it was dead. And I contacted DA, and I said, Dominic, this thing is dead. And he said, Bruce, I'm a Hillborn fuel injection expert, but not a Holly carburetor expert. I said, I can't believe you're saying this. You know everything about these gas engines. He said, oh, no, I don't. But I can tell you who to call. And he gave me an engineer's name at Holly Carburetors.
Wow.
But in the meantime, I was at the local auto parts place, and a guy by the name of Joe Aber, his older brother, was a person of my father's. I was telling the guy at the auto parts store about this. He said, oh, your problem is your power valve. He said, put an 8.5 power valve in it. I said, what's a power valve? They were like $3 and some cents. The power valve, it had a 6.5 power valve, and I put an 8.5. It's probably 8.5. And as you push on the throttle, you decrease, and Eric, if I'm wrong, you say so. You decrease the suction, not suction, I want to say suction, the vacuum. You're decreasing the vacuum in the engine, and the power valve, when you get down to that setting, is when the power valve opens and lets gasoline flow in. So Kevin, you know what we had on the Mastercrafts and the Ski Nautiques? They had a 4.5 power valve. And the reason they had that low of a power valve, they didn't want you as a competition water skier to be able to jerk that handle out of that skier's hands. So they wanted the throttle to be smooth.
Oh.
But when you're driving a car, it's like driving a semi-truck that's filled with babysitters. You're pushing on the throttle, nothing's happening. Your brain says, keep pushing, this thing's not going. So then when it does decide to go, then it takes off. And so a truck that's responsive, that doesn't have babysitters and is properly driven, is easier on fuel because you're pushing less on the pedal. And it was the same way with that Holly carburetor. So then I put an 8.5 in. I said, oh, what a difference from a 6.5. So then they had a 10.5. So then I went and I bought a 10.5.
Of course you did.
I put that in. It's in the metering body. And it was just too responsive. I mean, you couldn't squirm in your seat without the car accelerating. So I found the 8.5 to be the perfect power valve. I can't tell you how many Holly carburetors I fixed because of that, because of Joe Aber, the farmer, who was also a dirt track stock car racer.
Wow. All right.
What do y'all think about progressive shift?
Progressive. Here's my theory on shifting. If you're light and you're on the level, you can shift early. But if you're going up grades, you want to keep it in that gear long enough so you can grab that next gear so you don't fall below your peak torque, and then you make the engine shudder. So if you look at a boost gauge, and depending on the type of fuel system, I'm going to refer to the big cams because that's what I'm more familiar with. You could give it so much throttle and hold it right there, and the RPM would continue to climb. And then you get up to the point where you could grab the next gear and have it come in and still have power instead of shuttering the engine. Now, on a 4 1/4 B Caterpillar, it was a little different because the governor, your foot controlled the governor, so you had to keep pushing and pushing and then get your RPM up.
So here's what I can say.
That Detroit had for a while.
Yeah, so I have a ton of experience with progressive shift because when Detroit
got turned off.
Yeah, so I was experimenting with everything back then, anything we could do to improve fuel mileage a little more. Progressive shifting is very misunderstood. I told people for a lot of years, turn it on once just so you can see what it does and learn from it. But then turn it back off so you have control over it. But trying to teach somebody how to progressive shift is not easy at all. And here's why, what Bruce was just saying. The point that you shift is very dynamic and changes based on a ton of factors. But here's what we're trying to accomplish when we progressive shift. Here's what we're trying to do. We want to shift at the lowest RPM possible without causing a problem. Like Bruce just said, if you do it too soon and you're heavy and you've got a load, you're that's too soon. But if you would have been 10,000 pounds lighter, that wouldn't have been too soon. But the goal is to shift as soon as you can based on all of the conditions. And if you do that, two things will happen. You will actually accelerate faster, not slower. Everybody thinks, oh, I can't progressive shift. I can't get out of anybody's way. I'm going to get run over. Well, then you're doing it wrong. If you do it correctly, you will accelerate faster, not slower. But you also get better fuel economy while you do it. And it's easier on the drive line. It's easier on everything if you do it correctly.
Right. Well, I've never heard you say much about it, but I'm not one that listens. I try to listen 2 or 3 times a week, and I really appreciate how you did that app. That's pretty smart.
Well,
I used to listen to you when you was at XM, and whenever that happened, I really didn't know what happened to you either, to be honest with you.
Right.
And one day I'm just sitting here, oh, man, where's this guy at? Because, I mean, I really appreciate you. I mean,
Thank
more
you.
than you realize.
Thank you.
You know? So, anyway, thank y'all a whole lot, and I really appreciate what y'all do for
one
industry.
second. Are you going to
sir.
call us and get the right turbo and then report back?
Yes, sir, I sure will.
Excellent.
I'll give you my number and you call me. I don't care. But I'll call
Give
you.
me your number.
Excellent.
Give me your number.
You want it over there?
Hey,
252.
Hey, oh, go ahead.
723-4266. Now I'm gonna get me 500 million calls because my cruise control don't work, my high idle don't work. But it's okay.
That's right.
So what's your
I
first
carry
name?
my laptop with
Shane.
me. Shane, Shane. Yes, sir. And
All right,
actually, I live
Shane.
in Outer Banks in North Carolina. I'm just in South Carolina getting loaded.
Hey, Shane, I will tell you too. Bruce
live in
is
Battle
going.
Bank?
Bruce is going to call you.
I'm sorry.
I will tell you. Bruce is
Okay,
going
well,
to call you.
Well, honestly, I try to change turbos about every 2.5 years anyway, because
Why?
it's a lot cheaper just to change the turbo. Because how much more does it cost when it goes out on the side of the road?
You guys will have this discussion, I'm sure.
All right.
Hey, when you, I mean, if you own your own trucks and you buy trucks that are paid for, and you ain't got tons of debt, I like keeping my stuff where hopefully I'm not going to have a problem. I worked on too many people's electrical problems that would not spend money on the thing that makes their money.
There you go.
Well, if you ever get tired of driving, come to Pittsburgh Power, move to Western Pennsylvania, get out of the Carolinas, and we'll put you in the electrical department.
I hear you. Well, actually, I enjoy it. But
I'll bet.
anyways, I learned a lot working at the factory, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So thank y'all a whole lot, and I hope y'all have a good day.
All
Thank
right.
y'all for what you
Have
do.
a great day. Thanks for the call. Let's go to
Kevin, did you hear?
Yeah.
Oh,
Go ahead,
hold on a
Bruce.
second. Did you hear what he said? He enjoys it?
Yeah.
It's amazing how many people that came from another field, some of them not even truck related, but they remember going for a ride with their great uncle or something, and they bought a truck, and they said, man, I absolutely love this.
There you go.
And I like hearing that.
I do too. All right. Somebody told us Paul was going to call today. Paul.
Yeah, I was listening. Howdy.
Good morning.
I've a tip for Bruce. Mow uphill instead of downhill.
What'd I say?
Well, when he was saying when you slide downhill, he's telling you to mow
downhill.
uphill instead of the other way.
Mow it uphill.
Yeah, I know. And I do that most of the time on this one section. And then I go and I make a loop and I come down where it's not quite as steep, and then I go back up. But to get in this one section that's the side of a hill, you're sideways, and all I can think is this thing's going to roll over, and you start to slide, and there's trees there, and I mean, it's a pucker time.
Yeah, it is.
Don't worry, the trees won't move. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
So the disc brake.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell me about progressive shifting, the difference between uphill and downhill.
Oh,
yeah, progressive shifting, that works too. I learned to do that in 1996. I got a brand new International S-Line, Australian built one in New Zealand, and it had a N14 Cummins in it. And when it got delivered, the boss gave me a video. He said, "Ed, they told me to give you this video. Take it out. You need to go home and watch it." So I went home and watched it, and it was all about progressive shifting, and I've done it ever since.
There you go.
Okay. So
I still take off in low gear in my truck when I'm empty. I'll go through 5 gears going across the intersection.
All right. So let me ask
But
you
I'll
this:
leave
if you're
everyone
loaded,
behind.
if you're loaded and you're pulling out and you're going uphill, you don't shift early and make the engine shudder, do you?
No, it don't shudder. But as soon as the road speed's high enough, I'm in that next gear, and like
right.
I'll get going real quick.
But,
yeah.
Well, you don't grab a gear and let it come in at 800 RPM and just mash on it, let it shudder there and try back up to 11, 12, 13.
I'm easing onto it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's good.
Yeah,
but I've seen people do that.
Stomping it. Yeah, I'm not just standing on the loud pedal. Yeah. So.
I mean, I've rode with some people, and I said, "Why'd you shift that soon? We're going up this hill." And you need sometimes you need to use RPM when you're going up the hill to be able to get into the next gear.
So the disc brake thing, I can understand why some people are gun shy about buying disc brakes, because if you're hard on brakes, it's going to be expensive real quick. But I got to 1 million miles roughly before I needed even disc pads, and I had one caliper that failed, the piston popped out, so that I had to get new steer tires on, and I noticed the front pad on the right hand side, it was tapered off real bad, and it's like, I think I got a problem. And that's when I found out that the caliper had failed. They do rebuild the calipers. There's like a $532, I think, last time, core charge. And then, hang on, just let me step aside here. Excuse me. I got 1 million miles before I replaced any brake components, and that was front pads and one caliper. And my discs do have a real good lip on them. I guarantee I could measure it with a metric ruler. And then the last incident I had a rotor, a caliper hung up for some reason, and I replaced a caliper. But it's quicker and easier just to do a rotor and hub assembly. You can get it for like, I got it for $1,300, and because there's like 20 little screws to hold that rotor on, and if you're running any corrosion or chemical, you ain't getting those screws undone. So I just replaced the whole thing, and then the last hub and rotor I did, I had a leak in wheel seal, and you could feel the nick in the bearing. Couldn't see it, but I could feel it. But you could see it in the hub. So I just replaced the whole thing.
So, on a what was I trying to get a rotor off of? And had tapered Torx in it, and I couldn't get them out. And I went and got one of those impact. I don't want to call it a gun. It's an impact that you put it down and you twist it and you smack it with a hammer. Eric, what's the correct term for that?
Impact driver.
Yeah, impact driver. I think this was on a motorcycle, and it did take those out of there. But the motorcycle doesn't have the salt and mag chloride and all the other stuff. Okay.
So yeah. So but it'll be cheaper in the long run to just buy a hub and rotor and weigh quicker.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. So and the caliper, there is a core charge on it. $532, I think, for last time. But if you got to replace 4 calipers and 4 rotors at one time, it can be real expensive. So if you're hard on braking equipment, my suggestion is stick with old-fashioned drums. But I went a million miles before I had to replace anything.
Now let's not do that. Let's learn how to drive. Because when you've got a trailer, I don't care if it's a pickup truck with a trailer. I don't care if it's a Toyota 4Runner with a trailer or a semi-truck. The fact that you just don't be in a hurry, and when you know you're coming to your exit, you slow down, and most owner-operators do. We don't see the panic stops in the ECMs like we did on one particular person. And it's don't be in a hurry.
There you go.
Yep.
Hey, Paul.
Right. Yep.
Paul, I'm looking at you on a Hot Wheel.
Yeah, that's me.
What? Or is this a go-kart? What is this thing?
No, it was a Hot Wheels, but it had the downhill drifting.
Now, does this have an electric motor?
Not gravity.
Oh, so you're
Just downhill.
pedaling it.
Yeah, you just pedal to get it rolling. Then once you're rolling, you use the pedals for brakes. But
Hey, Bruce. You know how you should only be mowing uphill? This thing should only be going downhill.
Yeah.
Gravity.
So, what do you do with this, Paul?
Oh, that was a friend back in New Zealand, and he had a really good hill by his house. You just had to go out and have fun. Go down the hill, chuck it sideways, drift all the way to the bottom of the hill. So backwards and forwards.
I bet maybe you took this from the neighbor kid or something. And
No, that's a friend of mine that I grew up with. We did a lot of crazy stuff together, and he still does lots of it. So, yeah.
You did crazy when you were young?
Yeah, lots of it. I've got scars and broken bone stories to tell about it too. So.
That means you're pretty normal.
Neck, so. I'm told I'm not normal. So, yeah.
Okay.
Right. Okay. I
gotta go. All right. Thanks for the call. Let's continue on. Calls are busy today. Let's go to Virginia. Sam, welcome to the program.
Hello, how you guys?
Good. What can we help you with today?
Hey, I've got a story I tell quite often. It was a Pittsburgh Power repair story. I had a engine fan that wouldn't turn off. You fire up the truck, and 30 seconds later, the fan comes on, and it just wouldn't ever turn off. And you guys Pittsburgh Power was 2 or 3 months out on appointment, so I had to drive all summer with this damn fan on. And I get it up there, and I believe it was Pete that helped me. He came out and plugged in his laptop, and he said, well, the fan's coming on because the engines or the ECM's telling it to. And we got to find out why. And anyway, he got out of the truck and crawled under it, and my fan went off. He turned it off. I was like, what the hell? He found something that was unplugged and plugged it back in, and the fan shut off. I always remember being so impressed with it. I took the truck to several places, and nobody could figure out why my fan wouldn't shut off. But he found a sensor or something. Anyway, on this truck, I've got a fan problem. I can't get it to turn on.
All right, give us some details.
Plug it.
Well, it comes on and off with the air conditioning, but as far as getting hot, it doesn't turn on. And my gauge only goes up to 230. It's a Cat And I do have one of your radiators, Bruce, and so it takes a really hot day on a steep hill to make it hot. But I'm afraid to let it go much higher than 220. And I've never felt the fan. I've never felt the fan come on its own. I manually turn it on.
Is it a 6NZ, 2WS, 5EK?
It's a 6NZ.
Okay. Leroy, what's your thoughts?
I know the fan comes on pretty late on 6NZs, like 217 or something like that. So first thing I'm thinking of is I would want to test by overriding the sensor to make sure it comes on. I would also double check that the gauge is actually reading correctly. And then, I mean, that's the first place to start. From there, you can go different directions, whether the sensor is reading wrong, whether the gauge is reading wrong, and then see how the fan is programmed and make sure it responds to an overheat situation. And you don't have to overheat the truck. You can do that electrically.
Okay. Can you change it so it'll come on at 205?
I haven't been able to do that yet. No, haven't. People used to bother me all the time about that. Like we started looking into it, and then just cats kind of went away. So we really haven't looked at it much.
So it's not even supposed to go on until 217. So that's my gauge only goes up to 230. I mean, that's wound all the way around.
Yeah. If it's a problem for you to hit the fan switch, if you hit the fan switch before you get into the hill, where does the temperature stay?
I can usually keep it around 210.
Okay. Do you have 180 stats?
Whatever is stock, I believe they're 190s.
Okay, it takes 16
Whatever
degrees to fully open. So 190 doesn't fully open till 206. So I'd put 180s in it, and I would continue to use the switch. And I always did that on my big Cam 4 because it had that low flow cooling.
Yeah.
So, and if that's a problem, put an auxiliary coolant tank on, and then you won't have to turn the fan on. Add another 5 gallons to the system.
Yeah. Another question I had is the only thing I have left to do is I wanted to put your turbo and manifold on this. I'm already, because of you teaching me how to drive with my pedal and whatnot, I'm already averaging over 8 miles to the gallon in this thing. But with your turbo and manifold, what will I get out of that? What will that do for my truck?
Well, I don't know. I'd like to say, usually we say it's a half mile to the gallon with the 2, but the fact that you're up in the mid 8s now, I don't know, but I would certainly try it.
Yeah, that's definitely on my list. I need to make an appointment, get up there and do that. Is that always coincide with a tune, or do you do that without a tune, the turbo and manifold?
You can do it either way or do them one at a time. If you really want to see, do the manifold and then do the turbo and then do the tune. But it's easier to do all 3 together. But what's your boost if you're getting really good fuel mileage? What's your boost on the level?
Oh, I try to keep it. It'll stay around 5 to 7.
Good. Yeah. And what rear gears do you have?
355s.
Low Pro 22.5?
Low Pro 24s, actually.
Okay. And what RPM are you running on the level?
13. I drive around 60. Actually, I drive whatever my boost gauge tells me to, because I can go 70 sometimes at 5 pounds of boost if I got the wind in my ass.
That's right. And if you're going down a long grade and you can get it going 80 at 5 pound of boost, that's even better yet. But you'd need 264 gears to be able to do that.
Yeah, my last truck had 264s with direct. I do like that setup. I want to do that on this as well. But
you want to do it.
You want to do it. Yeah, I want to put it on this truck, 264s.
Yeah.
I don't ever use cruise control anymore. Once I learned how to drive with my foot and my boost gauge and my pyrometer like you taught me on the radio. I learned how on the radio. I never ever I never use my cruise control anymore. Because
amazing.
If I ever try it, I just noticed my boost gauge going crazy. I'm like, hell that. It turned it off and back out of the throttle.
So is this a 379?
No, it's a T600 with a
Okay,
ARI
T600.
sleeper, so it's got a big box on the back.
Yeah, good. And it's got that one little air
quick.
filter under the hood too.
Yep. Yeah, I got your whatever you call it, the fleet air cleaner on it. And,
Yeah.
But I had an odd. Anyway, I got called once because I do the oil sampling, and I was getting high fuel on my last one, and I got a call from your shop, and I was pretty impressed by that. But I changed the oil. I went from Mobil 1 or Mobil, whatever the Mobil's called, to Shell Rotella. And I was, through my monitoring, I'm not getting the fuel anymore. I thought I was going to have to do injector cups or whatever you call it, the injector seals or something. But I've got 150,000 on this oil. I just had a new sample, and my fuel level is still not even flagged. So I know I'm just keeping an eye on it. Changing oil, I don't see how that would help anything, but it seemed to.
Are you running the OPS?
Yes.
Okay, good. Was it Eric that called you?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I was grocery shopping. I got a call from Pittsburgh Power. Like, I better get this.
There you go.
But at the time, my strategy
Eric
was
didn't ask you Eric didn't ask you if there's any grains in your cart, did he?
That'd be a good one.
Oh, I'll tell you.
Oh, I got a story. Let me see. We love doing testimonials for the max mileage.
Yeah.
I didn't start using it in this for a very long time. I didn't think I needed it, but I did buy a Volkswagen TDI and I used it in that, and it's got a DPF. It does not use DEF, but it's got the DPF filter, and I've been using it ever since I bought the car. It was used with 70,000 miles on it, and I've never had any check engine lights come on until my son was driving it for a couple of years. And I said, you have to put this in there. If you run out, tell me, I'll buy more. And when he gave the car back to me, all the lights are on, all the DEF lights and, the emissions lights. And I said, when did you run out of this stuff? I don't know. I'm like, great. So I took it in and had an estimate for repairs. They wanted $2,500 for a new cat. And I said, that ain't going to happen. I'll delete it before I do that. And I started running the damn mileage again, the max mileage. And the next day, the lights went out, and that was 2 years ago. I haven't seen the lights.
Isn't that amazing? So you're not running it in the Caterpillar yet?
Well, I did. I started running it. I'm about halfway through my first gallon on my cat, and my EGR gauge has not worked since I got this truck. And then all of a sudden I look down, it's kind of out of the way. It's between the two big gauges, and I have to look over my steering wheel to look down at it. My EGR gauge is working now. Yeah, I guess it cleaned it.
It cleaned the thermocouple. No.
Yeah, it cleaned it.
Have you tried our new product that works with it?
I've been using Lucas. I wanted to ask you about your new product. Will that take the place of the Lucas?
That replaces the Lucas because this was formulated to work with the max mileage.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to try the new product as well because I've been using the Lucas because that helps keep everything clean, and I'll have to check out the new product as well.
Yeah, compare the two because you're getting great fuel mileage, and let me know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, next time I order, I'll order up the the new product as well. But the mileage, I mean, that's a clear indication that it's cleaning out the system, because all of a sudden my EGR is working. I thought I needed a new thermocouple, and I look down right now, it's sitting at 6. You know, like going up a hill, it gets up to 9. You know, that's what it's supposed to do.
That's right. That's where it's supposed to be.
Anyway,
You heard
guys,
that
love
other
your
guy
show.
call. You heard the other guy call with the 12.7 turbo on a 14 liter, and he's at 1200 on the cold side.
Oh, I knew exactly what he was talking about. Yeah, if it's in the manifold, 1200 is good. If it's behind the turbo, 900, that's it.
That's right. That's
But,
the difference between
anyway, guys.
hot
All right.
side and cold side.
Good stuff. All right. Calls keep coming. We'll keep taking them. Let's go to Wisconsin. Mike, welcome to the program.
Good morning, boys.
What's on your mind today?
Hey, well, I just want to tell Bruce those trees are there for a reason. They stop him.
Yeah, they'll stop you all right.
Yeah.
Abruptly.
Hey. Yeah.
Why did it say
Hey.
Wisconsin instead of said Indiana? Are you in Wisconsin?
Yeah. I just come from Minneapolis, heading home. I was going to tell you, you want to have some idea. I babied this old 96 Freightliner. And when you guys put that engine in, there's a little over 600,000 miles on the motor now. When I got back from Arizona, I had the truck in the shop. And, I had brakes and bearings and everything there. And I thought, I needed brakes on the drive axle and on the steer axle. That's 600,000 miles. Yeah, I could have went longer. And then my trailer, I bought it at the same time I had that motor put in. So a little over 600,000 miles on the trailer. So I replaced the back axles. The lift axles have half the miles on them, so they still, will go a lot longer. Still look good. But also, I talked to the owner of this, one owner since I was the second owner. The truck's got 3.5 million miles on it. And, I've talked to him, and he never changed any kingpins or any ball joints, and neither have I. But I've greased it every week, a couple of squirts of grease every week. So there's something to greasing, and there's something to babying your truck to be able to go that long. And another thing, since the clutch was put in when you put the motor in, it's never been adjusted. It doesn't need adjusted either. So
yeah,
that's what you can do with a truck when you just take it easy, no hurry. And I've never missed out on a load. Never been in any rush. I've never seen any reason for rush.
Let me ask you a question about your past, being you were a commercial pilot. The new planes, is it true you just push the throttles all the way forward and the computer takes and gives it the amount of fuel it wants to take off? But years ago, you, the pilot, worked the throttle. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's all set up in a computer system. So you spool the motors up to 40% or so, and then hit the auto throttles, and it sets it on its own. And you never take off with full power with those motors. It's all based on weight. So you take off with reduced power, stuff like that. You'll take off with 90% of your power. But you can get, if you push them all the way forward, like I've done before, thinking they're, then a problem, you can get 110% of your power. But yeah, it's all set. And once you take off, you get 50, 100 feet in the air, you turn the autopilot on, which is what I did in the end of my career. And I just I don't know if I landed the airplane 3 or 4 times in the last 5 or 6 years of flying. I just always went into the major airports to where they had the ILS system and Category 3 approaches, and you could, just let the airplane land, auto land everything. Always figured I made more money when I didn't have to work at it. It made me feel like I was making more per hour.
Hey,
all right. So, do you feel on the takeoff now that an experienced pilot like you would be smoother on the takeoff as opposed to just hitting the throttles to wherever it's going to go to and letting the computer take it? Because sometimes it feels
Well-
like they're playing shutters.
Well, you got to spool the motors up, so that brings them up to speed. And then if you don't push them up a little bit more, so you get a little smoother. But if you bring this, just let them spool up, and then you hit the auto throttle, it kind of just slams the throttles forward, so you feel that acceleration. I mean, it really shoves them up. I never ever did that. I'd push them up a little further and get 50, 60% power, and then hit the auto throttles, and then they continue on up and to whatever power setting was for that takeoff. So, but yeah, if you turn the auto throttles on just right after they spooled up, it just takes the throttles forward right away, and you get an immediate, kind of jerk.
All right.
Taking off.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then on landing, sometimes I feel that pilots want to see how fast they can stop that plane, and they nail that reverse thrust. They stand on those brakes, and they take the first turn off of the runway.
Yeah. Hey,
why not use more of the runway and let this plane slow
Bruce,
down?
Bruce,
they'll ask you because they got those high speed. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask Bruce if he's been flying Southwest a lot lately.
No, United.
Yeah, Southwest, I swear,
they got those high.
Notorious for several things.
Yeah,
they are going to get that first turn off that's possible, and they will use reverse thrust, all kinds of brakes, and then they accelerate to get to the gates. I swear, I may be wrong on this, but I swear the Southwest pilots are all trained differently.
Yeah, they kind of are because they're more like a regional thing, and they do 6 legs a day, 7 legs a day, and they have 15-minute turnarounds.
Yeah,
that's what their hubs are.
Yeah,
so they're in a rush to do everything.
I just look at it as everything has a wear cycle.
Right.
And if you do all this hard braking and you shutter it, a good friend of mine, a guy that John Anderson, who helps Eric with his race car, and he's a mechanic at Delta. And I've asked him, I said, is that hard on a plane, nailing that reverse thrust and standing on the brakes? He said, absolutely it is. I said, why don't you talk to the pilot? He said, you ever try talking to an airline pilot? I said, I know some, referring to you. But it's just when you make stuff shutter, shifting too soon, going up a hill with a load, shuttering the engine, standing on brakes, and just like some airplane pilots, I feel they're trying to tear these airplanes apart.
Well, if you're running late and you're trying to get back on time, there's a little bit of that there. So where you want to get into the gate, get the door open, because the time runs off the door when the door's open. And so you try to get into the gate. There's other times it's weather conditions. Other times you can see just roll out. And other times the controller will say, you got an airplane 3 miles on final. Can you get the first turn off? Stuff like that. Can you get the first high speed? Things like that. There's all kinds of things involved in why people do it. And then you got the hot shotters, the ones that just frickin', think they're driving a race car every time they drive. Just like truck drivers. I drive around the road 57, 58 mile an hour, and I see these guys, driving by me in the trucks, all in big hurries. Same difference.
Hey, Bruce, I have a question for you.
Yes. Yeah.
When you used to race Corvettes, were you more concerned about your time or being too hard on the car?
Well, they told me that I would never be competitive because I owned the car and I built the car and I drove the car, but yet I set the track record and I held it for 7 straight years. So I ran the car hard enough. Did I go through a couple engines? Absolutely.
Okay.
But you always tried to be smooth. When you're drifting through a turn, and whether you're at 90 or 80 or 110, and you've got the 4 tires sliding through the apex, left foot's on the brake, right foot's on the throttle. You give it a little bit of brake to settle the suspension down. You're pushing it, of course, but you're racing too.
Right. Well, and for me, I fly Southwest for a reason. They are Now, things have changed a lot in the last couple of years. I don't know what happened to that company. I think the government went after them, I swear. They were really efficient. Turnaround times, they hit them all the time. They were pleasant. That was just but to them, I think they look at that as the same way. I think they knew they could have made their brakes last a little longer. They could have made the engine go, 100 more hours or whatever it might be if they were easier on it. But they were hard on it for a reason, like you were in racing. You pushed it a little more. You're racing. They pushed it a little more and provided better customer service than almost anybody else. As far as always knowing you're going to get in, the plane's going to get turned around, you're going to be out on time. They were far more consistent than almost any other airline I've ever flown.
And then you have, you'll be in a like 737 or something, and you take off and you got, we only got 20 passengers on board. We're going to Cleveland. We're out of Cleveland going to New York. We're lightweight. Well, I'm sorry, but it's just hard not to do a full power takeoff and pull that off the ground and go through 10,000 feet in 1 minute.
Got to show off a little.
Well, I mean, you take off and you're through 10,000 feet in 1 minute, and you do a left turn and you look down and the end of the runway is right directly below you.
Yeah.
So sometimes you just have to do shit like that,
Right. Well, you got to know what the limits are.
But,
Yeah.
But,
So,
it comes down to wear and tear on a semi truck. It's the
Right,
same thing.
Yeah, in the end, it all comes down to, you work for a company, they pay you, you want to keep your job, you want the company to be profitable, and if you think like that, you'll think fuel economy, you'll think all those things, and I always did. I never was one to, to push things, but other guys didn't think that way. They like a lot of employees, I always acted like I owned the company. Any place I've ever worked, I always acted like I owned the company. But a lot of people don't feel that way.
Right.
They're pissed off at the world all the time. But one more thing I was going to say. So you're talking about highways and railroads and stuff like that. I don't know if any of you have ever driven up Highway 92 through Nebraska, take off out of Grand Island, you go up to Alliance, Nebraska. That's one thing that's real noticeable. So where they got 2 railroad tracks going the whole way, carrying coal, and during that whole time you're on a highway right beside the interstate, right beside the railroad tracks. And then sometimes it curves out, you're 2 miles away from the railroad track. Pretty soon you come back in, and the entire time you're going up and down these hills, up and down these hills. And yet I look at that and I go, they built this highway with all these hills and these curves, but look at that railroad, nice and straight all the way and no hills. Why did they build the highway like that when they could have done the same thing as a railroad? Nice and level, no up and down hills, no curves. I wonder why they did that. And you see that, once you notice that, then you see it all over the country. There's a railroad track going over there, and he doesn't have a hill, and here I'm climbing 100 foot higher than he is. Just some food for thought, but that's about all I got.
All right. Thanks for the call.
We had a client that built bridges, and the dip, on the little bridges that might go over an overpass or over a small creek. There's always that dip before and after. And I said, why didn't you come with 40 feet of steel girders and then start your approach? He said, government won't pay us to build a bridge like that. We just have to pack dirt in. And so you can't compact dirt and put asphalt and expect 80,000 pounds to be going over it. But that's probably the same reason. Government won't pay for that.
Yeah. Hey, I had a note here from earlier who must have been talking about oil, and I didn't get to it. I'm going to talk about it right now. Do you realize the next round of oils coming out, we are going to have a 0.20 weight oil?
For in a semi?
Yep.
Yep.
0.20s.
Yeah, for
are coming.
20.
Wow.
Yeah. Pretty crazy. I got to learn a whole new range of viscosity. What is a 20 weight oil? We must be down in the 10s, 9s, maybe even on a 20 weight. I don't know. We have to see.
Hey, Kevin, I got to say this. In a race car on a road course, you have to be smooth, because if you're not smooth, you're going to spin circles.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt.
About when you're drifting, you have to be smooth.
Yeah.
And when you come across the finish line, you just don't jab your brakes. You ease on the brakes and let her slow down before you bring her back into the pits. So.
Right. All right. Let's go to Texas. Richard, welcome to the program.
Hey, I got a question for Leroy and a question for Bruce. Go to Bruce first. I got the Flashpoint. I got two 150-gallon tanks on my truck, and I filled them up last night. Denim. I don't think anybody. So I just double dosed it at 250 gallons, and I put 16 ounce in each side. Is that correct?
So it's the normal dose is 1 ounce to 15 gallon. You can double up on the Flashpoint to try it to see what it does for mileage, but we recommend the.
I wanted to do that, and I know if, because I had a little less than a quarter tank in my tanks when I filled up, so I actually didn't double dose the whole thing if you really calculate it out, but I just want to make sure that was correct. Leroy, I got a 2000 T600 Kenworth. It's got the two pedals on the floor for the brake and for the throttle. The throttle pedal looks just like the brake pedal. I broke my ankle, the skinny bone on my throttle foot back in January the 15th, and I just now came back to work the end of April. Been off of work since then. I got 7 screws in my leg, plate, and my foot, ankle, and I got 2 screws that's holding both of my bones together, but the big bone and the skinny bone, because I tore both of the ligaments in between the bones and on the outside bones, and so that the big bone was kind of shifted out, so they had to put 2 screws to pull that back in. So I'm not having any flexing in my foot, so it's causing a lot of pain trying to hold this pedal down. But when I drive my pickup truck, I don't have that issue because of the throttle pedal different in a pickup truck than it is on my semi. So I was thinking about getting the throttle pedal out of a T660. It's a regular pedal, not like the one I got. It's like a automotive pedal. The only difference is the throttle sensor. The wirings are different. I think mine has got like 3 or the 4 wires, and on this one it looks like it's got more on there. Will I be able to rewire this to get that to work on this wiring on my truck, or am I going to just not be able to use that?
Did you say what engine was in it?
It's a 12.7.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It sounds like the one is just a regular 3-pedal or a 3-wire one, and the other one has idle validation. And you should be able to wire the other one up just to use just the throttle position part of it, not the idle validation part. I've never tried it. You could certainly try, see what happens.
Okay. Would you have a diagram on that to like to know which wires is which?
Yeah, I could send you over one. I would ask for
What's your email? What's your email? And I can just email you.
Yeah, it's Leroy@pittsburghpower.com.
Okay. I'll get that. On the guy, comment on the guy that was talking about his fuel mileage, his speedometer's not working. the easiest way to get around that problem is get you a GPS, and most of the truck GPSs now you can have a fill up. I know Garmin does it, Graham McNally does it. Each fill up you can calculate that in. Just put in an arbitrary mileage on your truck, whatever you got current, and your next mileage it'll run off the GPS mileage and not the truck mileage. It'll be different, but at least the GPS mileage will be a lot more consistent, a lot more accurate than the speedometer that's off on the truck. So that's what I'm having to do on mine because my speedometer don't work.
Yeah, that works.
Gotcha.
That's all I got.
All right. Thanks for the call. Let's go to California. Harold, welcome.
Gentlemen, always good to hear all your voices. Coming up through your favorite city here pretty quick, Kevin, in California, Visalia. But I got a quick note. I went up I-5 the other day and tried to get into the barbecue place there at Harris Ranch.
Oh, yeah.
And they've put Tesla chargers in there, and there's no truck parking anymore.
You're kidding me. Oh.
So you can't. No, I've been going there since 2000. I was hauling Mercedes up I-5 all the time from LA to the Bay, and that was my stop. Every day I would stop there.
Such a great stop.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, Harold.
Yes, sir.
Just pull up and block them all and run an extension cord into it from your truck and just say, I'm charging my truck.
I went in there the other night and parked anyway over there past the gas pumps, and the security guy came up. You can't park here. I said, I'm just going to run in here and see if they have barbecue, but they were closed. So he didn't run me off. But
when they say you can't park here, say, well, somehow I did.
Yeah, get it.
Sometimes you just have to return stupid with stupid.
So, Harold, what kind of truck do you have?
I know. Peterbilt car carrier.
Just take that. Just take that Peterbilt emblem off the front and put a Tesla on, and like Bruce said, run a cord to the charger and go, I'm a Tesla and I'm here charging.
I got a couple of comments. I got one of those John Deere riding mowers after owning a Honda water-cooled for about 40 years. It finally got to where it wasn't working too good anymore, so I bought my neighbor's John Deere tractor. And those controls on there are so crazy compared to normal operating systems. I started it up one day and drove right into my truck and popped the hood loose. So it was very embarrassing.
How bad?
After being a driver for all this time.
Yeah.
But back in my younger days, it's so weird that Yes. It's so weird how it won't take off smoothly unless you know exactly how to do it, which I didn't know then. I learned since then, but I had it parked facing the side of my car carrier, and I thought I was going to be able to take off gently and turn, but it took off quicker than I anticipated and ran right into the side and popped the plastic hood loose.
So, Bruce, I'm not totally familiar with them, but they have a hydrostatic transmission, so there's no gears. You have a pedal for forward and a pedal for back. Your foot, the front of your foot pushes on the forward, your heel can push on the back. But I will say that occasionally that thing grabs hard. Like you feel like you're easing into that pedal, but it will grab and almost give you whiplash sometimes. And I haven't figured out why it does it sometimes. It's not even a clear pattern.
That's exactly what happened on me on that day. And it took me about 4 months of owning it to figure out what that little reverse button was for, like you were talking about.
Why do I have to push a button? If it is okay for the mower to go backwards with the blade spinning, then just let me go backwards with the blade spinning. Don't make me push a button. What's the purpose of that?
Kevin, you sound like John Wayne.
Yeah.
Remember what John Wayne said?
No.
When John Wayne said, why do I have to push one for English?
Oh, yeah.
And you sound just like John Wayne.
Why do I have to push a button to go in reverse? And it's not like the button is... It's not the reverse button. So if I'm driving around and I don't have the blades engaged, I can go backwards anytime I want. But if I have the blades engaged, now I have to push a button. But I don't understand the purpose
Right.
behind that.
Well, on the Bombardier ATV that I bought to ride with you in Colorado, when you're in reverse, it only gives you a little bit of power, and if you want full power, you have to push a button because they don't want you to be able to go wide open in reverse. But
yeah, like we do
this
that all the
weekend, I
time,
just
right?
bought something. Yeah, you see these little hand towels, and they have little sayings on them. I saw one, and this does not pertain to our industry, but it pertains to a lot of the people in our country. It says, some people aren't just missing a screw, the whole toolbox is gone. So I had to buy that hand towel.
There you go. Although,
Shout out to Eric. Thank you so much for fixing the plug, Eric. It's working great. On my fast system. It's working real good. One more quick thing. Back in my race car days of being a truck driver, I had a K model, the 450, and I put a 10 button in it and broke the bolts on the front of the air ride suspension, popped those off, and popped 5 out of 6 head gaskets trying to go up the grapevine at 50 miles an hour. That was young and dumb and stupid.
There you go. All right, good stuff. We're going to wrap this up for today. Anybody have any final words of wisdom?
You're going to give us one quick health thing.
I am. This is a big one too. We've talked about it before, but I am becoming more and more convinced this may be one of the worst offending foods in our food supply. Anybody want to guess what it is?
Yeah, seed oil.
Hi, you're right. You are right. It is. We've always kind of known it. We've always talked about it, but it was almost secondary. You know, don't eat grains, cut back on sugar, more animal products, all that. And we throw in, you know, you should avoid those seed oils too. It might be the single. And what I'm going to talk about tomorrow, if I get enough research done today, that is what Dave Asprey is now claiming causes diabetes. Not too much sugar in our diet. It does become a problem of sugar, but his explanation is that our cells are not insulin resistant because of too much sugar. All of our cells, every cell in our body, the cell wall is made up of fat. That's why low-fat diets are a bad idea. That's just one reason. But if you are consuming damaged fats, which is what all seed oils are, they're all damaged fats, then your body can't build the proper cell wall. And that's why it won't accept sugar. That is a radical change. I'm not even sure what we do with that if it turns out to be true, other than it is really important to avoid all seed oils. And the problem is, if you're not reading every label, then you don't know if you're getting seed oils or not. And I will also promise you this. If you eat out, you are eating seed oils every time. Every restaurant that...
So if you get balsamic vinaigrette salad dressing,
Bruce, what it...
seed oil?
What? No. Now, balsamic vinaigrette, we don't know what oil they use to make the vinaigrette. You can use any oil you want. You could use cottonseed oil, soybean oil, canola oil. If you use olive oil, then that's not a seed oil, but there's another problem. Many of the olive oils on the market test positive for seed oils.
Oh, boy.
They're lying to us. They
So
put
first time
seed
I
oils.
heard your show about seed oil, I looked at all of our salad dressings.
Every one of
all
them.
Seed oil.
Every single one of them. The only brand on the market
do you
that
use vinegar and oil now?
I don't eat many salads anymore.
Okay.
So when I do use oil, it Liquid oils, I will use either olive oil or avocado oil. Those two are fine for liquids. Everything else for me is animal fats. That's all I use. Duck fat, tallow, lard, chicken fat, whatever. And don't buy lard at the grocery store because it's damaged too, even though it should be real. Most of the lard you'll find at the grocery store has been, what's the term? Hydrogenated.
Tainted.
Tainted. That's a good one. Hydrogenated. So the seed oil issue may turn out to be one of the biggest foods we should avoid. And again, if you're eating out, Bruce, you can't just think about salad dressing, though. What are they putting in the pans or on the flat top that they're cooking the food in? It's going to be a seed oil. Most restaurants today don't cook everything from scratch. They get everything in packaged. All of those packaged foods have seed oils in them. All of them.
Wow.
So every sauce you
get
get,
cooked in seed oil.
Yeah, you know, we talk about this. People used to say, "Oh, McDonald's French fries used to be so good." That's because I think it was still in the 90s. McDonald's was cooking its French fries in beef tallow. That's why they were so good, and they weren't all that bad for us.
Yeah.
They switched to all seed oils.
Do you save the bacon fat?
Absolutely.
Cook with?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's what our parents did. And our parents didn't have a lot of these problems.
Yeah, and you know the best way to do breakfast is whatever you're cooking on a flat top, a pan, whatever, do the bacon first and then use the bacon grease to cook the eggs and the potatoes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, that's the tip for
what
today.
we do in Colorado is we put paper towels in the bacon fat and we soak it up and put it in a baggie. And when I need to start a fire in the wood burner, I use a slice of paper towel, and what a fire starter that is.
And it smells good. That's a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Anybody else?
See you next Tuesday. I'll try to listen.
No, I guess we're good. All right.
Okay.
We will.
Good night.
Yes. We'll do this again next week. Thanks to the team from Pittsburgh Power. As always, if you have any other questions between now and then, give them a call. I will see you back here tomorrow for Destination Health, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be covering the seed oil issue and diabetes yet or not. I got some more work to go do. Be safe, be profitable, be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the journey.